Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and Apostate Prophet. So click below to grab your tickets right now, as some ticket types have already sold out. You don't want to miss out on this cultural moment that's starting Saturday, February 15th in Newark, New Jersey, with 2 full days of debates. So click below to grab your tickets right now so you don't miss out. Newark, New Jersey is where Modern Day Debate's next debate conference, DEBATECON 5, is happening, including debates like Dr. Lawrence Krauss against inspiring philosophy Mike Jones on Saturday, February 15th, and Andrew Wilson against atheist Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and Apostate Prophet. So click below to grab your tickets right now, as some ticket types have already sold out. You don't want to miss out on this cultural moment that's starting Saturday, February 15th in Newark, New Jersey, with 2 full days of debates. So click below. Hey, everybody. Tonight we're debating whether or not misgendering somebody is hate speech, and we are starting right now with the yes side, in particular, 1stAmender. Thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Hey, how you doing, James? Glad to be back on. So yes, misgendering is in fact hate speech. Basically, what you're doing is that hate speech is not necessarily about what is intended, but rather its effect on what exactly is happening. So if you're deliberately misgendering somebody, and I don't mean like an accidental misgender, I mean like you are deliberately misgendering with the intent to be a terrible person, what you are doing is that you are undermining the trans person's dignity as well as their identity. You are in effect reinforcing discrimination and social exclusion. On that basis, right, any human, every single human, man, woman, whatever, is that we generally, unless if there's a really good reason to, try to include people in society. And if you are already just off the get-go deliberately misgendering somebody in order to exclude them from society, you basically are excluding them based on just nonsense. So to break it down, if you are, example, misgendering them and you are causing deliberate psychological and social harm to that individual, that's increasing their anxiety, it is increasing their depression, it is increasing their rates of suicide rate among trans individuals. You, by their very virtue, are revoking basic inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. This is the case in any modern society, that we treat people how we would want to be treated. And if you are, say, a cisgendered person or somebody who is straight, it is safe to assume that your identity is not called into question. And with that, I cede the rest of my time.
Go ahead, William.
It's cool. I'm going to share my screen now.
You got it. Ready. Crystal clear.
All right. Hey, I'm Will. I'm going to be arguing that misgendering is, in fact, hate speech. So let's get started. So before we dive into the hate speech aspect, I want to first talk about just transgenderism in general. So first, this graphic on the screen does a really good job at breaking down gender, sex, and how it relates to each other so that we all get a better understanding of the situation. So there's 3 categories that make up a person, and they're on the screen here, and we're going to break down each one. Gender identity, gender expression, and anatomical sex. Gender identity is a person's inner opinion, subjective opinion about themselves, whether they think they are more woman or more man or both or neither. There is no wrong answer here, because it is simply a opinion about yourself on the inside of you. It is a psychological inner subjective concept, so it cannot be wrong. Gender expression is an intersubjective concept that exists in a society, because a society is the thing that's going to dictate what is a more feminine attribute and what is a more masculine attribute. That's going to involve things like the way you dress, the way you act, the way you speak. And the main thing to look at here is that gender expression does not need to equate to your gender identity. You can have masculine men or masculine women and feminine men, and that doesn't break any rules, right? And then you have anatomical sex, which is the physical characteristics of the individual's body that you're going to correspond to a particular sex. It's going to be things like genitalia, chromosomes, hormonal makeup, and bone structure, and more. And even that's not a binary. You can have more or less of either one. The only hard rules is sex assigned at birth. You only got 3 options here. You got male, female, or intersex. And this is where transgenderism comes into play. Because according to the DSM-5, transgenderism is the same as gender dysphoria, which is the same as having a sex assigned at birth which does not match your current gender identity. And that's all it is. They do explicitly state that it is not a mental illness, it is not a mental disorder or any of that. It is simply a psychological characteristic of an individual. Now, that being said, there are times where gender dysphoria can result in distress of the individual. And then we have to look at that situation for what it is. This is an individual, a person in society, a member of our community that needs help. And they deserve our respect, first of all, our empathy, and our support if they need it. So how can we support a transgender individual? On the screen, there are 6 different modern peer-reviewed articles that point directly to the fact that gender-affirming surgeries helps transgender people who are going through distress avoid suicidal ideation and depression. So we know gender-affirming surgeries help, but we also know a lot of people are very nervous about transgender surgeries and gender-affirming surgeries for them. So there's great news for them. There's a much more foolproof way to help transgender people avoid those terrible mental issues, and that is simply affirm them and support them socially, right? Respect them, vocally voice your respect, your affirmation for them, validate that their identity is theirs and it is valid, and just support them, right? The reason people want gender affirming surgeries is because they don't have that affirmation socially, right? So if we supported them socially, we would actually likely reduce the desire for those surgeries in the first place. So this is where hate speech comes into play, because when you are going out of your way to misgender them, you are doing something that you know is going to contribute to severe psychological harm in some cases to these people, right? And obviously we're only talking about purposeful, intentional, and deliberate misgenderings. Any accidents, no transgender person is going to have a problem. But when you do it deliberately and you do it consistently and you are clearly trying to disrespect their personal gender identity, that's when it becomes harmful, that's when it becomes harassment, that's when it becomes hostile, and that's when it becomes hate speech. And that's not even mentioning the fact that misgendering is a form of language that's aimed at marginalizing and invalidating the entire group of transgender people just because of their personal beliefs and opinions just about themselves. You're completely disrespecting that entire identity of them. That is very important to them. And guess what? You don't even have to affirm their gender. You don't have to affirm their gender. You just don't need to misgender them, right? Because there's another option. You always have the option of simply using gender neutral language, like the word they as a pronoun, or just drop the pronouns and just use their name, right? Whenever you talk about them, just use their name rather than using gendered speech. So if you really want to respect them, but you also don't want to affirm their gender for whatever reason, you don't have to. You can still support them, still respect them, and not cause any type of hate speech by misgendering them by using gender neutral language or just using their name. So it is very easy to avoid this form of hate speech and respect each other and build each other up, the golden rule that we all respect. So I hope we get into bathrooms. I hope we can talk about who can use what bathrooms. I hope we can talk about who can play what sports. I hope we can talk about all the plethora of topics that are related to this. And I think that's it for my time, but I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that opening statement. I am going to kick us over into the other team's opening as well, but want to say, folks, First, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. Modern Day Debate is a fully neutral debate platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as we have many debates coming up, including at DebateCon this Saturday. Folks, if you didn't know it, in Newark, New Jersey, DebateCon this Saturday is Modern Day Debate's two-day debate conference filled with debates on both religion and atheism and politics. You don't want to miss it. Click on the link in the description box to get your tickets right now. I'm going to kick it over to first time here, Jake of Rattlesnake TV. Thrilled to have you. The floor is all yours for your opening.
Thank you, James, and hello, Modern Day Debate. Good to be with you all this evening. My first time on the platform, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you very much, James. And I'll be seeing you guys on the 15th on Saturday at DebateCon in Newark, for whoever's coming. So I'm really looking forward to that. On the topic of the debate, my name's Jake. My channel is Rattlesnake TV, by the way, and I like to go by Lord Rattlesnake or Lord Jake, most base chat of all the lands. If that's too much of a tongue twister for you guys, then you can just call me Lord or me Lord. So just for my opponents today, when you do refer to me, I would really appreciate it if before you address me, you say my Lord or just Lord. Either one of them is fine. So that would be fantastic if you could respect my identity. Furthermore, my pronouns are we, us as well. So if you could use we, us when you're talking about me, that would be great. And in terms of the debate, I do not think that misgendering is hate speech, because I don't think that speech or words in themselves can actually be hateful. There has to be intent behind it. I'm not going to say that there aren't people who don't hate transgender people. There are going to be people who hate transgender people. However, to say that misgendering alone is hate speech would imply that there is always intent there with the misgendering. I completely disagree with that notion, because normally if somebody does misgender, they're doing it because they're making a truth claim. They don't believe that they are the gender, or they don't believe that they are the sex that you're calling them. So respectfully, Will, I appreciate that you came with a whole, like a sort of DEI thing today. That's fantastic, but I don't care about your DEI presentation. It doesn't really matter to me what your parameters for a woman are. I don't think it's relevant to the debate whatsoever. We're not going to be able to convince each other differently. That's not going to happen. The debate is about whether or not it's hate speech. So I'd appreciate it if we could stick to the debate prompt rather than getting into the weeds of what is a woman, etc. We can, if you really want to go there, we can, but it's not going to be relevant and it's not going to be productive. So if we could keep it to the prompt, that would be fantastic. And with that, I'll cede my time to Alex.
Yeah, my lord Jake makes some good points. I actually go by Your Majesty, Your Highness will be also sufficient. So, okay, by definition, hate speech is abusive or threatening speech that expresses prejudice on the basis of ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or similar grounds. The big thing is it requires intent to cause harm. The speaker must have intended to incite hatred or hostility towards a particular group. If you, for example, believe there are two genders, like most people do, then you're just simply identifying someone correctly according to your beliefs. You're not being abusive or threatening. At least that is not your intent. It is potentially impolite. Yeah, sure, but it is not hate speech. It is also a First Amendment protected right. If you're not communicating a serious intent to commit and cause violence, then it also is protected under the First Amendment. Furthermore, I'm just going to add this. The whole premise of hate speech is a horrible idea for the left. I'm personally an old school liberal, and sad to see how the left basically fucks itself in the ass and loses every single election because of its focus on things like this. They're pretty much every normie rolls their eyes on and thinks is cringe. But yeah, the bigger point here is that simply that it requires intent to cause harm. And if you believe there are two genders, right, then you're not intending to cause harm. So for example, if you don't actually believe that Jake is a lord and you just say, hey, Jake, you're not intending to cause him harm. You just simply disagree with what he believes he is to be. But it's more polite to call him my lord. So just pointing out.
Thank you very much for that opening. We're going to jump into the open dialogue. A couple of quick housekeeping things. First, folks, as I mentioned, DebateCon in Newark, New Jersey this weekend. Folks, if you think that you don't have plans for this Valentine's Day weekend, you do. All the debates will be live streamed if you can't make it. So you're in Australia, you're like, James, I can't make it. Don't worry, you can watch them live from at home. Also, you can get in on some of the action. So for example, asking a question during the Q&A or getting a signed photo of your favorite speaker with the Indiegogo crowdfund linked in the description box. Check that out right now. As for example, Andrew Wilson will be there. You can see that photo on the bottom right of the screen. He'll be facing off against atheist Craig McNeil. You can get a signed photo of Andrew Wilson if you'd like, or whoever else you might like from DebateCon. Check out that Indiegogo link in the description box. That, gentlemen, thank you very much. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
Yeah,
So I wanted to see if I can say something real quick, right? So you wanted to be called, Alex, I believe, wanted to be called by Your Highness,
Your
and Jake
Majesty.
Rattlesnake wanted to be called by Lord, correct?
Lord, yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so are you aware of the massive difference that exists between respecting someone's actual gender identity and indulging in your absurd demand?
Whoa, what's absurd about my demand? You have
Yeah,
to call me
You're
my
not
lord. And
being
by the way, you haven't actually
you're
addressed
not
me as
being
my lord.
systematically discriminated for it.
Well, how do
You
you know that the
understand
lord
that?
community
If
isn't
you're
being
a
systematically
lord versus
discriminated
not
against?
a lord, you are not being discriminated against. However, trans people are, right?
So
those
you're
are
saying that
not
based on
the
my personal
same
subjective
thing.
experience, because you said in your opening
No, I'm
statement
talking
that it
about
was about effect. So if you're
systemically,
gonna, if we're
you're
gonna
not
talk,
being
if we're gonna
treated
talk,
the
First
same.
Amender, if we're gonna talk, you have to let me talk, and then you talk, then me talk,
Yeah,
then
I
me
know
talk.
how this
That's the way that it works.
this
Okay.
dish galloping,
I do.
Okay, cool.
steamrolling
So
thing
let's
goes.
Let's hear from Jake
I'm gonna
first,
respond.
Amender. I do want
I'm
to
gonna
let's give
respond to
him a
what you
chance
said
as well,
now.
and we'll come
You're
right back to
making
you.
an
Cool.
unserious
I'm gonna
comparison
respond
to
now.
dodge the
So first, I'm gonna
reality that
respond now.
misgendering
to
has
you.
real world
I'm gonna
First
respond.
consequences.
Amender, I
I'm gonna
hate to do
respond.
this. Gentlemen, I hate doing this, but just to, First Amender, I do want to hear, we'll come right back to you, but I do want to hear what Jake has in response to what you had just said. Okay, ready? And then I promise, of course, First Amender will come right back to you. I want to be fair. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit triggered, to be honest, by First Amender's response there, because actually in his opening statement, he said that it's about the effect that it has on the person. And now he's trying to shift the goalposts and say it's about whether or not that person's oppressed or not. Actually, I feel very oppressed by you not calling me my lord, and it's deeply, deeply upsetting for me. And based on your own logic and based on your own parameters that you put up in your opening statement, that would be hate speech. So you're engaging in hate speech. How dare you call it absurd that I want to be called my lord?
Yeah. So again, you're making an unserious comparison to dodge the reality that misgendering has real world consequences.
I just
You're
told you I'm
talking
sad about it.
actual people who possess higher suicide rates, job discrimination, as well as medical mistreatment for misgendering. Whereas calling you Lord versus not does not systemically discriminate against you.
So
So I want to address the
you've
actual
moved the
question,
goalpost then
right? Rather than
completely.
this ridiculous nonsense, right? The question is misgendering hate speech, right?
I really want to ask a question for Jake and Alex as well. How do you both decide what pronouns to give somebody?
But how do we decide what pronouns we use? I just look at them and I ascertain that they're a male or female. I understand that I can be tricked by somebody if they were to do a really good performance. I've been to Thailand and I've walked down the red light district, so I understand that you can be tricked. But you know, 99.9% of the time, we're going to be able to look at somebody and ascertain what sex they are.
That's called using their gender expression. You're looking at their gender expression and making a call. And
Well,
as you just said,
there's a big difference between something being hate speech and you choosing out of the sake of politeness to call. So, for example, if there's a trans person on the panel and they seem cool and nice, then I'm just out of the sake of politeness, I will call them that, right? But even if I don't, that's not hate speech. It's my First Amendment protected right, because if I believe there are two genders, that's my belief. I believe there are two genders. That's what.
But nobody is asking the government to create laws to force you to not misgender somebody.
Well, that's
We're
exactly
just saying,
what
hey,
happened in Canada.
well, okay, but we're not Canada. We're the United States of America.
Right,
but
but
I'm arguing is
slippery slope.
misgendering hate speech. Hate speech, even if it is labeled hate speech, still has nothing to do with the First Amendment, because you can still incite hate speech, provided that they're not technically fighting words or like words that incite violence.
Does
right,
hate speech
in the
require
United
intent
States.
to
So
cause harm?
you can say hate speech, right? You can go outside and be a dick. But the problem is that doesn't really revoke the concept that it is hate speech. So stop invoking the First Amendment. It has nothing to do with this.
Well,
right?
no, I think some people do dislike
that by making
their
your
First Amendment
unserious
right.
comparison by being called highness or lord, right? You are dodging the reality that misgendering has real world consequences.
Well, how do
right?
you know? How do you know? Wait,
higher suicide rates. It causes job discrimination. It causes medical mistreatment. That is not the case in being called Lord or Highness or not being called Lord or Highness. So
But what if
understanding that it
what
does
if it
cause
causes
higher
Jake?
suicide rates
Wait, what
to
if it causes
deliberately
Jake emotional
misgender people,
distress?
and it does cause
Are
job
you just gonna
discrimination
just gonna
and medical
filibuster the
mistreatment.
entire debate,
No,
or are you
I'm,
gonna let
I'm,
other people
I'm,
talk?
I'm
You've been
trying
talking
to
for a
ask
few minutes
you
now.
a
You need to
question.
be,
I know for
you
a
need
fact-
I do
be a
Can
bit
I
more
want to.
please
concise. You need to
finish
be a bit
my
more concise.
question?
All right.
Yeah,
What
be
I
a bit more
want to do
concise
is
though,
I'm going to
because you're
give you
rambling
about
a lot.
20 seconds, 20 seconds for submitter, and then I do think it is true that we want to make sure it keeps flowing.
Okay. Knowing that it causes higher suicide rates and job discrimination, as well as medical mistreatment by misgendering, right? That inherently, what do you think that that could be interpreted as hate speech if the speech itself causes those things?
Okay, just
Anything could
one
be
last thing.
interpreted as something, but just because something could be interpreted as something,
I'm asking you. I'm not
doesn't make
asking
it-
society. I'm
that
asking
doesn't
you.
make it a thing. It's an
This is a
irrelevant point.
dodge.
Okay,
Answer
hold
the
on
question.
1 second. First Amender, I do want to actually, so if you ask more and more questions, I think there are a few points that they actually want to make in response to what you had just said. So if we just let you launch into only questions, then we actually won't be able to hear some of the points that they were kind of waiting to give back. So I do want to give, before we get into interrogation mode, Jake and Alex, any thoughts that you had from the points that First Amender
Yeah.
just made?
Yeah, first of all, you have zero idea. You just met Jake. You have no idea what caused him emotional distress or not. Zero idea. You're speculating, right? And the point of an extreme analogy like this is to prove a point. Let's do a less extreme analogy. What if I decide right now that I'm a woman? Is it hate speech if you don't call me ma'am?
Do you actually internally feel that of women?
Yeah, let's say I just decide that right now.
I mean, if it causes suicidal ideation, job discrimination, and medical mistreatment, yeah, it is hate speech.
Okay, so right now,
But
so right
obviously,
now
it's
you
not
would,
really that simple to just simply flick a switch and just say, okay,
well,
I'm
how do you
trans now.
know? I just maybe I just had
Because it's a long
confusion there.
pathway. That takes a
Well, how do you
very
know-
long
how do you know
time
about
and
Because,
very
Alex,
long
you-
journey to
you
get
have-
to that conclusion.
You have the
How do you know
option
what
to
gender is?
not use gendered speech. If we really don't believe whatever it is you have in your mind about what gender you are, we could just not use gendered speech and still recognize you and talk to you and not misgender you, right? We have that option. That's always available. And if we
Well, what if me
choose,
not
if we
being called ma'am
choose,
causes me emotional
if
distress?
that's not misgendering, that's just you want me to use every single word to be in congruence with how you think language works. That's not the
Wow.
same thing as misgendering, right? Misgendering means I'm going out of my way to say that you're a gender that you explicitly are telling me that you're not. Now I want to go back to what I was saying, where I asked you, how do you decide
what if I
gender
believe
to
there's
call
only
people?
two genders? Like,
Well,
what?
I want to go back. I want to go back to what I said when I was
well,
asking
let
you
me get
how
an
you
answer
just.
to that afterwards.
No, I will. I will.
Okay.
I want to go back. You said, well, Jake said that he looks at someone's gender expression and decides that's how they're going to use what pronouns is going to be fit for them. But I want to ask you, if you say a person is a she or a he, and they say, actually, I'm a man, what are you going to say back to them? Are you going to say, no, you're not?
It really depends on the person and their nature of our dynamic. If they're being nice and polite, I will, just for the sake of politeness, just suck it up. But if they're being rude and condescending, I will say, well, actually, no, you're not a man. Sorry.
Okay. So you admit that it's at least disrespectful to misgender. You're at least going to say that.
It could be disrespectful, yes.
I love that. Now, if it's so disrespectful and you are aware that that misgendering could potentially lead to psychological harm of that individual, would you say that might have intention behind it? That could, you're basically intending to harm them if you know that that action is going to likely harm them?
It is theoretically. I'm just gonna skip to the point I think that you're trying to make. It is theoretically possible to use hate speech against trans people, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're intending to cause them harm. But if you're like most people and believe there's just two genders, then all you're doing is just accurately, descriptively describe them according to your worldview. That's the
Alex, you can believe in two genders and still misgender somebody. Like, I don't know what
You
the
can
point you're
also,
trying to
you
make
can
is.
also believe, you
Yes,
can
it would
believe in
be-
two
it would be-
genders and correctly gender
well,
somebody.
it wouldn't be.
Like,
Yeah.
It wouldn't
in
be.
fact, most
wouldn't be
trans
misgendering.
people
Wait, hang on.
aren't doing neo pronouns. Like,
It wouldn't be misgendering though, because if they have an, for example, an XX chromosome, right? Then and they claim to be I believe it's a man, right? Then I'm like, no, well, like, no, you're actually a woman.
So,
I mean,
but you're not going to ask for
There-
their chromosomal makeup,
you're
right?
aware that
Right, but you
there
can
are
fight
people
off
with
the doubt.
XX chromosomes that have penises, right?
Sure, but that still doesn't make you. You can get a penis.
Okay,
transplant surgery.
well, so then
That
that
doesn't change
exhibits
Your gender's
an
determined by your
incongruency that exists between
Not incongruent.
something and sex. And you are saying regarding someone's gender. I don't know if you're doing that like on accident, but what we're referring to for men being women, right? We're talking about it in terms of gender, right? The initial sex, men being women in terms of gender, women, gender, okay? So like, for example, you could have XX chromosomes as in woman, or I'm sorry, female, and then when you grow up, you have a specific hormonal type that causes you to feel that you're a man in a woman's body. Then the answer is that their gender and their gender expression would be that of woman. Do you understand? So
I just disagree
understanding
with
the
the whole
difference
premise
between
right
those
there.
I do
things.
want to,
Because
just
you're
to be sure, because I know that
psychopath.
I know that you had a round in the chamber ready to fire, Alex. But I also want to make sure that, in case you had any thoughts, Jake, you've been patiently waiting. In case you had anything you want to mention.
Yeah, I would like to understand what our interlocutors here agree is psychological distress. Can you please define for me what psychological harm is and how that's quantified?
If you know a certain action is going to potentially cause suicidal ideation or depression in an individual, that would easily be considered hate speech, right? Or psychological distress. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. Well, I just don't understand why you haven't called me my lord then, because like we said at the start of the debate, that deeply, deeply offends me if you don't call me my lord. And actually,
Lord
it
isn't
might
a
make me
gender.
seriously depressed. No, it's
Lord
my
isn't a
identity.
gender.
That's my identity.
Well,
is my
I'm
lord.
not. This
So I
debate
just
isn't
wanna be
about
clear, right? You're
misidentifying.
basically
Right. No,
going- I
it's
wanna
my
be clear,
identity.
right?
Somebody.
I'm telling you, it's my identity. And 1stAmender, you can be as flippant as you want about this, but that is my identity. I
Gotcha.
am
Have
a
you been
lord,
to a
and I want you
psychologist
to.
where you're like getting dysphoria because people aren't calling you Lord, and you're like spending every waking moment of your life where you're literally cutting your own wrists because you're not being called Lord on a daily basis? Are you serious? Do you
Yes,
understand how
I have done that.
disrespectful of what you are saying on this?
No, I have done that. That has happened.
Show
Yes.
me your arm.
No, it was when I was younger.
Oh, okay, all right.
Jake,
So you
Jake,
never
the
did.
Lord
By
isn't
the
a
way,
gender.
those don't
This-
go away all the way into adulthood. So yeah, you're lying.
No, I'm not going to
You're
show you
lying.
my arm.
So
I'm
wait,
going to
if a
show you my
trans
We know the
person-
fact
okay?
that
if a trans
you're doing
person
this
hasn't
to
cut
be
their arms, then it cannot
disrespectful,
be
right?
hate.
And I'm telling you
Yeah.
the massive difference between respecting someone's gender identity and indulging in your absurd demand.
Wait,
Jake,
sorry,
you're creating
if
a
a trans
straw man
person
argument.
has not
Yes,
tried to
you're
commit-
exactly.
Hold
You're
on,
straw
sorry,
manning
just
the
to be
real
sure
quick.
that we hear
If-
all. Hold on, one sec. Okay, Alex, do you have a thought?
Yeah, if a trans person has not tried to commit suicide or cut their arms, then you cannot misgender them, right?
That's
that was
not
the-
what I said.
Well, that was
So
a part of
1stAmender,
Will's
just
argument.
to be clear, because we
I'm
were having this
saying
back and
that
forth
I'm
before. Just to be
giving
clear,
an example
so
of
if-
somebody who's dealing with actual gender dysphoria, and your ridiculous comparison to Lord. That's a dumb straw man, and it doesn't have anything to do with the argument, right? So I
1stAmender,
wanted to go
we
back
get it. We get it.
to
We
the
get
fact
it.
that
You
you
need
are
to-
basically inhibiting into
we-
hate speech.
Let's hear
McLovin,
from Jake.
relax, McLovin. Okay. So when you walk up to a trans person, and so if I was trying to ascertain in my ignorance the level of damage that was happening to a trans person, would I ask them to show me their arms if they told me about all the distress that they'd gone through? And is that how I would quantify the psychological harm?
But I'm just pointing out the difference. I know that that's not like the 100% test that you would not all trans people are cutting their arms because of their gender dysphoria, but some are.
So then it
right?
mustn't be
And
that
I'm just
bad.
pointing out that you're talking about someone's mental well-being. You're talking about their self-worth. You're talking about their emotional stability. You're talking about increasing their prolonged
it's
stress.
very hard to
You're
have this back
talking
and
about
forth if you just
creating
keep
verbal
talking and
abuse,
talking.
discrimination,
I got another
bullying,
question.
and all of these forms of mistreatment. You're causing all of these things, and you're just like, this is hate speech. I just want to be
All
a
right.
giant piece of garbage
We'll
when
hear.
I wake
Okay.
up in the
Okay,
morning.
just
Like
to-
that's
well, actually,
literally what
all
this
right,
is.
we
Yeah.
need to get
Kind
to
of,
something more
yeah.
substantive. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, no.
I did give you something substantive.
I
You're
know, but
causing
the-
emotional
McLovin,
distress, cognitive
McLovin,
damage, behavioral
first
changes,
semester.
and physical symptoms.
1stAmender, I
McLovin,
know, but the impression
out.
was off. It wasn't super substantive. Let's go to Jake.
So, you still haven't quantified harm for me, by the way. But if they did say to me that they were going through all of this harm, why should I believe them?
You're talking about the emotion. Okay, fine. I will quantify it for you, right?
No,
It
I'm saying
is
why
the
should I believe them?
emotional
That was the question.
or mental distress caused by actions, speech, or experiences that negatively impact your
Yep.
well-being, their self-worth, emotional stability. You
Mhm.
happy? Is that
Yep.
okay? Now we can
Fantastic.
move on instead of
Fantastic.
playing dumb. All right,
Now,
cool.
why should I believe them? Why should I believe them, 1stAmender? You tell
What?
me. Why should I
Because
believe them?
they might have gender dysphoria.
Okay, well, I have told you about my own emotional distress and the fact that I've been to psychologists and I've had all of these terrible things happen upstairs right here.
You have
okay?
not
and you
been
don't
to a
believe me.
psychologist
So why,
being called
why don't
Lord.
you
Are you
believe me?
serious?
1stAmender. It's
Jake,
my identity.
What?
First of
No
all,
one is
you're falling into
discriminating
this trap
against
by
you.
trying to argue with this.
No, no, no.
This is not a
I-
gender identity. You're not.
So you're
talking
saying
about
that you
gender.
shouldn't just believe people on
isn't-
face value when they tell you
Jake,
things?
Jake,
Guys, this
you
is
are
ridiculous.
not
This is actually
arguing
aggression.
about gender
That's so
identities.
stupid.
Have you looked
Okay,
at the
hold
prompt?
on. All
This
right.
is
One
about
second.
gender
He's using
identity.
an
This is
analogy.
my
Let's hear
personal
from William.
identity, guys.
It's
I
a
know
bad
that
analogy.
William's been
identity.
waiting
No,
a
it's
while.
actually
All right,
a really
gentlemen,
good
I hate to do
analogy.
this. I just
What-
because
what-
William has been forgive me, just because William has been waiting for a while, so I do want to hear from William because it has been a while, and then I promise Alex will come back to you, and then Jake, and then 1stAmender. So William, go ahead.
Thanks, James. Your analogy is bad, Jake. It's called a straw man because you're making up an argument that we're not making and trying to have us argue against that, but we're not making that argument, okay? You're not talking about gender when you talk about my lord. If I really wanted to avoid gendering you at all, I could do that, and I could just use gender neutral language. I could use they, or I could just call you by your name, and that is how I can talk to you respectfully. I don't
Will,
have
that's
to. You
not
don't.
a straw
You
man.
can't. You cannot control every aspect of language around me, and that's not what transgender people are trying to do. Transgender people aren't trying to control all aspects of language. They say it would be polite if you called me this type of pronoun. You don't have to. You don't go to jail if you don't have to. But if you want to be considerate, if you want to care about these individuals, then you need to understand that this type of language can cause distress. And if you believe the scientific research that does prove that, then you would want to be respectful. You want to have empathy for these people, and you want to call them the respectful pronouns that they ask for, or just use gender neutral language.
Sure. Okay.
Easy
Will,
solution,
so once
right?
again, first of all, that wasn't a straw man, so you got that wrong, and that was a little bit stupid. But second of all, I can't quite understand this. Why won't you respect me, and why won't you respect my identity? I've
Oh,
clearly
let me-
asked you to call me. Hold on, Will. I've
It's not
asked
a
you
gender
so many
identity.
times. Hold on, Fogel. All right. I've asked you many times now, Will, to call me my lord. So I want you to respect me because by your own metrics, this is my identity and you are not respecting my identity and it is deeply upsetting. So Will, please, next time you address me, my lord X, my lord Y.
It sounds
Thank
like you didn't come in with many
again.
arguments, Jake, because that's the only thing you're going to keep on repeating and repeating and repeating. I've explained to you why that's not the same thing. I've explained to you why that's a
Like,
straw man.
we can-
It's
We
not
haven't
a
even
gender
gotten to the
identity.
debate.
We
I'm
can
simply
exhibit-
asking
we
for
can
human
exhibit the-
respect, human
we can
dignity.
exhibit
I'm asking
the-
for respect, and then later we can get to the argument. This is not an argument. This is just me asking for you to respect my humanity.
We
So
can-
can
Is
we
there
start
any
on
other
that
arguments
point?
you
can
have,
exhibit-
Jake? Or
we
do
can
you actually want to talk
exhibit-
about the debate?
One
we can
sec. Okay.
exhibit
My lord, I'm sorry you've been treated this way so far.
Thank
Jake,
you.
we can exhibit, for example, trans people existing at an endocrinological level. This is also the case at a neurochemical basis. It
I
also
don't care.
exists under the neurobiological basis, right? Understanding that,
irrelevant.
show me where is your allele frequency for, say, being called Lord and your dysphoria of not being called Lord.
It's actually irrelevant to the debate because the debate's actually about hate speech. It's not about whether or not you can prove
Wait,
endocrinologically.
it's about what
if,
being hate speech?
It's about whether misgendering is hate speech. It
Oh,
doesn't
not
matter.
calling
Yeah.
Lord, because that's not a gender.
Oh, correct. Yeah, correct.
It's my
Well,
identity.
hate
and
speech is
but
identity
not
not
as
limited
gender,
to
though.
gender. Wait, hang on.
Identity is
Hate
limited to
speech
gender.
is not just
Gender.
limited to gender. Let's just get out of the way. Hate speech is not limited to gender. I'm going to ask a hypothetical question.
That's
What
the
if
debate,
you-
though.
What?
The debate is about misgendering,
Yeah,
not
but
wanna hear- hold on.
all
We're
hate
talking
speech.
about. Oh, first we need to agree
I
on
do
what
want to hear
hate
from
speech
Alex
is.
because he's waited. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
Alex.
I'm going to ask a
course.
hypothetical question. What do you know for a fact, right, that Jake is going to be more suicidal if you don't call him my lord? Is that hate speech then? It's a hypothetical.
If it was absolutely true, then I would actually advocate that it is. But
Yeah,
I think
would too.
it's pretty obvious that he's just making up attempting
Guys,
to
I've got
make
something to
a
tell you.
example.
Guys, I just
Okay,
need to
so
tell you.
He's just creating
I
a
actually-
red
Well,
herring
what do you know
fallacy.
when he
Hold on a
said that
second.
he
One
was
second.
when he
Okay,
said
hold
that he
on.
was
All right,
self-harming
James,
with his
gentlemen,
this is
wrist?
very important.
For some
I
reason, he
do
doesn't
have
seem
to-
to have
This
any,
is very
any
important.
Hold on,
injuries.
gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
This is very important.
Got it. So he's like a liar.
But so in a
he's literally
hypothetical,
saying the
if you truly,
falsehoods.
if you
Got it.
Okay, I hate to do this. So I think that Jake had something that he wanted to say, and then I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm. But go ahead, Jake, and then what I think we'll do is go over to William. Go ahead. I have to unmute you now. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate how unbelievably offended I am by this because I'll have you all know that I actually am a lord. I own a small bit of property in Scotland. So I am, by definition, a lord. So you guys, for some reason, I've been telling you I'm a lord this whole time, and you guys haven't been believing me. You've been saying that you don't believe me and you don't believe in my identity. but I'll have you know that it's actually true, and I can verify that. I can actually send through the documentation to James. So you've been denying my identity this entire time. I've told you about the psychological damage. By your own metrics, it is psychological damage that I'm going through by both of your metrics, and you've still been denying it, even though I can show empirically that it's true. So I don't really care anymore about your endocrinological argument.
I love your example of Lord because it actually disproves your entire point, right? So Lord is a legal term that has legal precedence in certain legal cases, right? There's specific legal requirements you need to become a Lord. Gender's not like that. Gender's different, and I know you don't understand that, but that's okay because that's what this whole debate's about. So gender is about a personal identity that you choose. It's your personal opinion about how you identify. It is not a legal term, right, Jake? Which is the one you were using. You were using a different scenario. That's why it was a red herring, right? That's
it
why it
is my
false,
identity,
example.
Will. What don't you understand? It's my
no,
identity. It's my
it's not.
humanity.
It's a legal term. It's a legal identification,
who
which is different
cares?
than a personal subjective identity. Is it different, Jake? Or is it the exact same?
I don't care. It's my identity.
It's different.
And you're not
That's
respecting
why
my
it's
identity.
different.
It's the same thing. It's identity.
It's not the same thing.
It's my
very
identity,
different because
Will,
they
and you're
have
not
different
respecting
impacts.
it. And
They have
I've
different
proven to you that
impacts
it is.
psychologically. There's different impacts of it psychologically.
Quantify that for me. What's the different impact psychologically?
I'll give you a chance to respond, Will, but then I do want to let our friend 1stAmender out of the jail here. So Will, go ahead, and then we'll also have PFW in just a moment. Go ahead, Will.
So invalidating someone's personal identity in a cultural setting with social aspects is very different, much more psychological impacting than trying to just deny someone's legal terms socially, right? That's very different. No one is going to mind if you disregard my legal identity. It doesn't matter because my legal identity will still uphold in the court system, right? But my personal identity, which is much more cultural, much more social, if you deny that, then that can impact me socially, which can impact my personal feelings about how I live, what kind of friends I can make, who I can become friends with. It's very different because of those reasons. Thank you.
Yeah,
Alex,
so my identity...
no, 1stAmender, no. I love how 1stAmender, when he's put on mute, he's gonna launch into his screen share. He's gonna get his message across one way or another. 1stAmender, I need you to stop sharing. I do want, Jake, I'll give you just a super pithy response, and then I want to get Alex back in. 1stAmender will get you out of jail here. So first, really pithy, Jake, and then really pithy from Alex, and then from 1stAmender.
Yeah, so my identity as Lord, which is actually an identity, it affects me legally, it affects me socially, it affects me in a plethora of different ways, actually. So by your standard, once again, that it can hurt your fee-fees, it hurts my fee-fees if you don't call me a Lord, and it has a wide-ranging set of effects on me. So
short and pithy. Oh, we'll go to Alex.
Yeah, I think you guys said something interesting earlier. You said that if you know for a fact that Jake is actually going to be more suicidal if you don't call him my Lord, it is hate speech. Then the thing is that you don't believe him. So what if I don't believe a specific trans person is going to have suicidal thoughts after misgendering them? Then it's not hate speech either, right?
I would agree with you, Alex. And the difference is that transgenderism has a extended history of how gender dysphoria can affect mental health, right? There's a very clear common they kind of can go hand in hand with each other because gender identity can cause isolation in a community, right? If your entire community is isolating you, is rejecting you, is not approving of your personal opinion just about yourself, that can feel isolating, and that isolation, that social disapproval is what causes those negative feelings. That is not the same as not calling you my Lord. That is not the same as labeling your legal term. That's not the same thing at all. This is a gender identity. Personal subjective opinion is different than a legal identity. It's very different.
Okay, but the key point is that if I personally don't believe this specific trans person is going to have suicidal thoughts or suffer any harm, then I'm not misgendering them, right? That's not hate speech when I misgender them, right?
It would still be hate speech because you are more likely to hurt them.
But you said before that it would not be, that you would agree with me.
No, but we know it is, right? I know you're painting a picture.
But what if I know a specific trans person is not going to actually, like I have some evidence in my mind that's actually not going to cause them suicidal thoughts. Then it's not.
Then I would say, sure, it's not done.
All right, we'll go over 1stAmender, who's been waiting for a long time in jail. Go ahead, 1stAmender.
All right, let me see if I can share my, I apologize. I didn't realize that was just going to just do that. So
That's all right.
my apologies in advance. I just need a little bit of time, right? Longer than like 10 seconds if I can. If I can just please have that. Okay. I just need
like
everybody.
60 seconds.
All right. Yes. So here's a paper from PubMed. I've linked one of your moderators to please post this also in side chat so people can see it. This is an example of the neuroanatomy of the transgender identity, a mega analytic findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group, right? Under the results, you could see transgender persons differed significantly from cisgendered persons with respect to their subcortical brain volumes and surface area, but not cortical thickness. Contracting the four groups, transgender males, transgender women, cisgender men, and cisgender women, we observe the variety of patterns not only dependent on the direction of the gender identity, as in towards male or towards female, but also on the brain measure as well as the brain region examined. There is a literal physical understanding of the existence of trans people. That is exactly what this paper is telling you. Okay. And so now that we understand that empirically, it is a thing, right? It's not just your fifis. It's not being called Lord, right? We can move on to like the actual argument, right?
All right, well, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm empirically a Lord. That's actual fact. But
Give me your paper.
Amanda, let me ask you. I'll actually send the documentation off to James if you'd like. But
no, share it now for everybody.
I don't have it on me right now, but I can get it sent. That's for sure. And
I want it sent now, right? Otherwise, I don't believe you, right? Because you said that you were self-harming, but you don't have anything on your arms.
I want to give Jake a chance.
Right? You're a liar. You're a liar.
All right.
So is a trans person lying if they don't have their DNA test?
Fogel, I don't know why you don't believe me, because this is my identity, and you're meant to just believe me. If somebody identifies,
that's not how this works.
Identifies as a rubber ducky, Fogel, would you affirm their identity if it said that they were going to really hurt themselves if they wanted to be identified as a rubber ducky? Would you affirm that?
I had to put him in mute. I can give him a chance to answer, but of course, it might be more than one word that he uses to respond. Go ahead, 1stAmender.
This is ridiculous. Like, I have to sit here and I have to argue.
Answer the question.
No, I'm tired of dealing with these right-wing chuds day in and day out. They sit there and argue the same stupid right-wing argument talking points, and they don't actually argue real freaking points. I bring up real, actual, empirical basis behind the point. You can't rebut it. I bring up how Lord is not the same thing as talking about someone's gender identity. I bring up how a person's respecting someone's gender identity can actually cause physical harm to the person, and it is not the same when being called Lord. You asshole. You're just being a dick. That's all you are. You don't have an argument. Present your paper or shut up.
Okay, listen, Fogel, I understand.
Present your paper or shut up.
Hold on. We have to give Jake a chance.
Is that what you would say?
Fogel, listen.
All right, let's give Jake a chance to speak.
I want to ask you if you would hold a transgender person to the same standard, Fogel, because clearly you want me to show evidence of my identity, and actually that is adding to the systemic discrimination that the Lord community faces on a daily basis. So would you ask a transgender person to show you their documentation if they didn't pass? If it was a man who looked like a man and didn't pass as a woman, but he claimed to be a woman, would you ask them for documentation, or would you just accept it?
Present your paper or shut up. Where do you see the empirical basis of being called Lord exhibiting itself at a neurochemical level? Show it. Provide it. Provide it. I want actual fucking paper. It's so frustrating that I have to sit here and deal.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's nothing personal, 1stAmender. I just want to kick it over to it. Looks like we've come to a what's the word? Stalemate? Let's go over to Alex and William. Alex, I'll give you a chance. Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're witnessing some pretty grade A hypocrisy here. If me or Jake were to say this to a trans person, show us your penis, show us your DNA test right now, right? We would be considered massive bigots, hate speech, all that crap, right? But for some reason, this time it's different. Let's do another analogy, okay? One that may hit closer to home. Well, let's say I believe I'm black because according to my 23andMe, I'm 1% black, right? I don't look black, but I feel like I'm black. I identify with the black community, identify as being a black person. Is it hate speech if you refer to me as white?
Let's hear from William.
All right. So race is very different than gender, right? Race is not always just summed up to be a psychological phenomenon in the mind. And race is there's many different dimensions you could go with it. Are you passing as black? Are you not passing? Are you African American? Are you from Africa? Is your ancestry from Africa? Do you have all these other factors? Are you from the black community in America? I mean, just because you're a light-skinned black person, are you still black? So there's many different ways you could approach that. And it depends, right? Do I have good reason to think that this is going to really, really affect your identity? Is it important to you? And if it's extremely important to you, then it doesn't matter because it's just an identifier. Now, does it mean that you are African American? Does it mean your ancestry is one way? Does it mean you pass as black? Not necessarily, but race, it's different than gender. It's not the same. So it's not a good example, not a good synonym. So,
Well, actually, there's a lot of overlap because race, we can agree, is at least partially genetic, and so is your gender, right? If you're born with an XX chromosome, you're much more likely to identify as a woman, right? If you were born in Africa, you're much more likely to identify as black. So there's actually, I think it is very analogous. I don't see why, in your opinion, gender is something that's purely mental, but there's a strong correlation between your chromosomes and what gender you're going to identify with. It's a very strong correlation. So I don't think you can just sweep this analogy under the rug.
yeah, but that strong correlation isn't it doesn't equate, right? You don't have to have it. And again, like race, if I have a very strong feeling that this is extraordinarily important to you, if I feel like you are in mental distress, if I feel like you need support, and that is the thing that's going to support you and help you out of some kind of mental issue that you're going through, I don't have a problem calling you whatever you want to be called because I care about you as a person and I respect you and I have empathy towards you. And that's what we should do towards the transgender community.
I'm not saying I agree we should have empathy towards people, but then I don't think it's hate speech if you don't call them by their preferred gender or specifically use
Alex.
I understand the point you're going to make is specifically use a different gender than they believe themselves to be, because you could very easily believe that you're not causing them harm and you believe there's only two genders and you believe
True.
that they're delusional. You believe that they're lying potentially, right?
But let me ask you this.
think
What
they're
if you
lying.
do think
Just
it's
like
going
you
to
guys
cause them
believe
harm?
Jake is what? Yeah, go ahead.
What if you do think it's going to cause them harm by calling them the race that you don't think they are? What if you actually think it's going to cause them harm, Alex?
Are we talking about race or gender?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, if you believe that you are causing someone harm by calling them the other gender, then I would argue, specifically if you believe that person is going to be caused harm, then yeah, it could fall under hate speech in that case.
Look at this common ground. I love that, man. You and me, Alex, we're best buds, and Jake and 1stAmender, y'all gotta make
The
It's just-
mob
it's like-
wants
I think-
more
I think
blood. We have to go
confusing
back to
thing
first
Listen,
about what
Amender and
gender
Jake.
First Amender will be the best man at my wedding. He's a great guy, and I think potentially a best bud of mine.
I think the problem is
It's
he
just
won't
on this
call you my lord.
particular issue we don't particularly agree. But we're like Seth MacFarlane. What's his name again? Jonah. We're like Jonah Hill and McLovin in Superbad, just trying to go to parties together and stuff. We're two peas in a pod.
I have no idea what this has anything to do with the actual topic at hand.
So,
I've
Jake,
shown you papers regarding
just extending an olive branch.
the neurobiological links of being transgender, right? Obviously, there's nothing of the sort regarding being called Lord, so it is disanalogous. So we can leave that, right?
I wanna
But
ask Jake this question.
understanding that a person doesn't choose their neurochemistry or their neurobiology. So if they feel that they are that, and that let's say that they are receiving gender dysphoria by not being gendered their proper gender, right? Then yeah, what you're doing is that you're revoking their very identity and their dignity. And so therefore it would be hate speech. You are deliberately trying to misgender them in order to get an ire out of them, in order to frustrate them, right? That's what you're doing. And you doing exactly that, trying to want to be called Lord.
Sure,
I have
I'll
a
even
question for
engage with
Jake.
this. I'll even engage with what you've just said, 1stAmender. So if it is if it is about that, first of all, I don't care about the neurochemical. It actually doesn't make a difference in this regard, because just say somebody has a very strong Christian or Muslim belief, if they're a very religious person, and for that reason, they don't want to call this person by their fake gender or by
Great,
their
use they them
fake sex
pronouns. It's not that
identity.
big of a deal.
Anyways,
Use they
they
them.
don't
There's
wanna
nothing in
use-
the
they don't-
Bible
they
or
don't want to
the
use- if I
Quran
could just-
or the Tanakh
McLovin,
or in the
McLovin.
Bhagavad Gita that says,
McLovin,
yeah,
I'd really
I like the
appreciate it
ad
if I
hom,
could-
but
if I could
again,
continue-
there's nothing,
if I
just
could
use they them.
continue-
It's not that
if I
hard.
could
Like,
continue
just don't
what I
be a
was
dick.
saying
But I'm
before you
pretty sure
interrupted me,
in
McLovin.
multiple of the
So, if
religious
they don't
texts,
want
it
to be
literally
called
does
by it,
tell
so
you to
yeah,
not
I know
be a
that you're
dick.
scared.
One
Treat
second.
you
I know
as you
look,
would like to be
look,
treated,
Just
right?
to
I
be sure that we
understand.
can hear, okay, just to be sure we can hear each of you. I do want to kick it into 60-second timers here. So, Jake, you got 60 seconds. Go ahead.
So I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's why he started to try and filibuster the debate, and he's just given me the finger, which I think is actually probably might be considered hate speech with his logic. But anyways, if somebody does hold very strong religious beliefs, and they don't want to use bad English and say they, them, which is just bad English, by the way, and they don't want to call somebody by their fake gender identity based on their feelings, and if that is the case, and if they feel a deep anguish about having to do that, and if there are billions of people on Earth who would suffer this same anguish as there are, and that's provable, then if it makes them really upset, and if it makes them feel like they are oppressed, and if they are actually existing in somewhat of a minority, then by your own standard, then you would be engaging in hate speech by trying to make them affirm, or by trying to make them affirm your gender.
Okay, you got 60 seconds as well, 1stAmender.
No, because I've already explained that. I've explained it directly. I've made you understand how this works. I've explained the entire concept to you. For some reason, you completely just ignore it and just double down on wanting to be a dick. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say to you. It's such a shame to see. Yeah, you're enacting in hate speech, and yes, I'm enacting in hate speech right now towards right-wing chuds. I hate right-wing chuds. I hate them so much, and I wish that they would, like, I don't know, pick up a book and read instead of like watching Matt Walsh and Fox News all day and getting their opinions from that. Pick up a neurochemistry book, pick up a neurobiology book, pick up a psychology book, pick up a fucking gender studies book, pick up literally any fucking book, any freaking book, so that way you could stop with the stupid arguments.
Any book whatsoever would disprove what we're saying.
60 seconds.
That's
Jake.
not true.
Yeah, he didn't make an argument. That's the problem, though, here, James. He actually didn't make an argument. He just said, I hate right-wing chuds. Oh, I hate right-wing chuds because I can't
Yes,
get
I
laid.
do, because they're
that's all
like
he said.
you, and they like to be hateful towards people.
Women
and when
don't
I
like
bring
me,
up
so-
the actual facts behind
That's all he
it, they
basically
completely
said.
ignore it, and then they could
All
just
right.
double and triple and quadruple down.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to
let's get to
just quickly, though. It's okay for you to use hate speech, but it's not okay for me or for anybody else to use your perceived hate speech.
What?
But it's
No,
okay for you to do it.
Yeah, it's called the paradox of tolerance, right? You're probably already aware of that. I do not tolerate the intolerant. You're an intolerant bigot. You're a bad person. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to be a piece of garbage in the morning. You're like, man, I really just don't like trans people. They make me upsetty spaghetti, and I really that they would just rather not exist. And so I'm going to be a giant douche online so that way I can make some money and that a bunch of people like me. Like, you're literally a horrible person. You are not on the right side of history here. You're going to lose this debate.
Anyways, so if we're talking about hate speech, I'm actually the only one who's been misgendered here, and you actually were the one who denied my
Lord
my
is not a
identity.
gender.
It is my identity.
For the
and
final
it is
freaking
my
time.
identity. Listen,
It is not a
McLovin,
gender.
It's my identity.
Can you
you're the only
stop
one-
double and triple and quadrupling down
Right.
on the dumb argument?
1stAmender. I do have to give Jake a chance to speak too.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip this
So-
dude's head off.
You could try. I don't know how well
Okay,
that will go for you.
we can't let it go that far because YouTube terms of service won't allow
It's
this.
not an actual physical threat. Jesus.
Go ahead,
Doesn't
Jake.
sound like a.
Oh, I just muted everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Jake. Now.
Yeah, well, I mean, with his paradox of intolerance, by my standard, then, and with that standard as well, I don't tolerate people who are intolerant of intolerant people. So I don't tolerate you, and that's why it's okay for me to use hate speech. I'm actually not going to come down to your level and use sort of physical threats and all of these sorts of things, but yeah, I don't tolerate that either, and that's hate speech, and I don't appreciate it. But anyway, since you're so educated and since you read so many books, First Amender, what's the scientific method?
Okay, First Amender, I'll give you a chance to respond. Let's see. William looks like he's compelled to respond as well, though.
He's just going to Google it now.
William, what does Google say is the definition there?
I'm not Googling nothing completely unrelated to this topic, but I do want to ask a question that is related to this topic. Jake,
what's the scientific method, Will?
If you knew that...
Will, what's the scientific method?
Not related to this topic.
No, that's the question that I just asked. So can you answer my question? What's the scientific method?
No. So if you knew...
So you don't know what the scientific method...
Whoa,
you were just talking all about science before, Will.
Harmful
James,
to someone's health.
I want my question
if you
answered.
knew someone's... If you knew
Moderator,
some form of speech...
Answered.
If you knew some form of speech was going to be harmful to somebody...
Okay.
Whoa.
Just to be sure that we're... Hold on one sec. I was under the impression, William, that you were like kind of like aroused by Jake's question on science. So I do want to... It's fair that, you know, like, does anybody want to, like, is there no one that can give a definition of science in this debate? William, if William, if you don't want to, First Amender, are you open to that? How about this? Put your hand up if either of you are up for defining science. Okay, go ahead, William. William,
although I don't think it is relevant.
Okay,
you have a hypothesis, you create a hypothesis, you test that hypothesis, and you form a conclusion based on your tests. So anyway, now I would like to actually talk about the debate topic. So if you knew a certain form of speech was going to genuinely harm somebody, Jake, would that be considered hate speech in your opinion, Jake? If you knew it was going to harm them? Or if you had really good reason to believe it was going to harm them?
No, it wouldn't be hate speech, because you actually have to have hateful intent for that person. Because in this case, if I was to misgender this person and I was just making a truth claim, it wouldn't be hate speech, because I'm just making a truth claim.
But you don't need to make that type of truth claim that you believe is going to harm them. You could make a truth claim that doesn't harm them, such as using gender neutral pronouns, or just using their name. So why would you use a pronoun that you know is particularly likely to harm them, knowing their psychological conditions?
Because my first and foremost concern is the truth, and
yeah,
I'm making
so use gender neutral programs.
So I'm making a truth claim, and I'm not going to use they them because it's incorrect English. So I'm just going to use the gender pronouns that I.
Why not their name?
Well, because I'm not going to adjust my language for somebody.
Oh, but I thought it was all about the truth
of their imagination.
I thought it was all about the truth for a second, Jake, and now you're changing it, and now you just say, "Oh, you don't want to talk in a way that's going to make them feel comfortable." Well, that's really hateful, Jake, and it seems like you actually want to go out of your way to use language that's going to make them feel uncomfortable.
Actually,
and
no,
that does not sound like any form of love I've ever heard of.
Listen, Will, if I was going to go out of my way, then I would be going out of my way to remember Zim and Zer and all of these crazy different pronouns. And that's actually not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is just speaking the way that I would speak to everybody and treating everybody the same and equally, because I'm a very respectful person and I like to treat everybody the same and with dignity and based on truth. And if I was going to be going out of my way, if somebody's asking me to use alternate pronouns, that's actually making me go out of my way.
So if someone if you accidentally misgendered somebody and they said, "Oh, I'm a woman, not a man, you misgendered me," are you going to not respect that, or are you going to respect that and use the pronouns that they tell you to use?
So like I've already told you, I'm going to go based on the truth. And if
but how do you know the truth,
then there is
Jake?
no hateful intent there.
But you don't know the truth, Jake.
Well, I do know the truth, because you can observe what sex somebody is by just looking at them. So
excuse
that's
me?
my truth claim.
Have you never looked at a person that you thought was a man or woman and made a mistake? Have you never done that in your whole life? Is that impossible?
It's possible to be tricked.
Alex?
So therefore, truth claim is subjective, Alex.
Like I said, it's possible to be tricked, right?
So how are you going to know the truth then, Jake?
It's possible to be tricked. And if there was somebody who I literally could not tell if they were a man or woman, and they said to me, "Oh, you got my sex wrong," then I would say, "Okay, sure." I would trust their judgment. But if it's a 6'4" guy with an Adam's apple who comes over and he's got a penis bulge and he says to me, "It's ma'am," I'm not going to respect that. I'm going to say, No, it's not.
But if they look more like a woman, you would.
What? No. If I think that they're actually, I don't know what you're laughing at, Will. Like, this is actually
That's
very
why
simple, my
you
friend.
just contradicted yourself.
If they look like they're actually could be a woman, which is very, very unlikely, then sure. If I actually can't tell, because unlike the rest of the population, Will, you guys are the only ones who seem to be actually confused about this. But on this topic, though, why won't you respect me? Because I've already told you that calling me Lord is actually going to be respectful, but you've been unbelievably disrespectful. You haven't been called me Lord once. So why won't you give me the
Jake,
same respect?
how
I've
do
already
you
told you
know-
the
Can I just
mental
please,
effects on
let me
that.
try something. Let me try something.
Well, let
So-
me respond to something.
Yeah, Alex doesn't have the chance to talk.
Yeah, I want to respond to what 1stAmender said about 5-10 minutes ago. I guess I'm a right-wing chud, even though I'm a Bernie supporter, vote Democrat in every single election. But it's interesting that you mispoliticize me. And I don't know how you don't see the irony of calling other people dicks, despite acting like one yourself and claiming disdain for everyone who doesn't agree with you on every political issue. How do you not see
That
the
is
irony?
not my argument. I'm saying that if you revoke basic humanity, like if we're sitting here arguing on whether or not like healthcare ought to be a human right, that's a completely different discussion. You're literally revoking someone's basic humanity, their very dignity, right? And you're waking up in the morning with that clear intent, right? So both me and Will feel that it causes harm to misgender somebody. Most people don't seem to believe that. I feel that that is the case, and Will also feels that that is the case, right? So let's at least agree to disagree that I'm assuming you do not feel, do you feel that it causes harm to misgender somebody? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think it can in certain situations.
Okay, so if it can,
Thank you.
okay, wait, then, all right, so, all right.
But it can't be it can't be hate speech because it's a case by case basis. And
Correct. Wait, that's good. That's good.
Well,
But then you're saying that in some cases it can be hate speech.
Let me actually respond to your question. And it depends on what I believe about that person, whether I believe that this is going to cause them harm or not. So if I'm not intending
Okay, so that
wait,
I want to delve into
I
that.
respond to your question. Is that
Yes.
Okay. Well, you seem so exasperated. I just want to answer your question.
No, because I want to drive on the concept of intent here.
I know you're gonna have a chance in about 10 seconds if you just be patient for a second. So yes, if I believe, so it comes down to what my intent is, which is what I was saying from the beginning, right? Hate speech requires intent, and if I don't have intent to cause someone harm, if I don't have that intent, if I am just like Jake, I believe in two genders, and I'm just trying to be truthful, then it is not hate speech. It could be rude, it could be impolite, but it is not hate speech. That's the
That contradicts
Okay.
what Jake said before, because Jake said even if you believe it's going to cause harm, it won't
Me
be
and Jake
hate
have
speech.
different opinions.
Okay, all right,
you
all right.
two
Hold
should
on,
be debating
hold
them.
on. So I want to see
we
real
largely
quick.
agree
So
on
I want to. Okay, I don't feel that intent is actually necessary. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's say if your speech empirically causes harm on someone, right, and you didn't intend for it to harm them, right? Do you think that like something like that would still be punished, right? Like from a societal standpoint.
You mean, is it hate speech?
Is it hate speech?
So like a good example is like, let's say if I'm like 15 years old, right? If I was 15 years old and I just don't understand the consequences of my actions, right? I yell fire in a crowded movie theater, 3 people die due to trampling, right? Do you honestly believe that I hold no culpability to that?
Well, that is illegal. You're not allowed to do that.
Okay,
Why?
no. So
Why is it
I'm not.
illegal?
No. So here's the
It
thing,
causes
right?
harm.
I'm not. I want to sever the concept of legality and morality here, right?
That's why
I'm saying, like, to you, Alex, right? Do you feel that the person holds some level of culpability there?
I think that's an irrelevant question. Whether
No,
they
it's
do or not.
it's really not. I just need you to answer this question.
I'm gonna just hang on.
You could think it's irrelevant. I just need you to answer the question.
If you just take a deep breath, dude, I will answer the questions. I've been
Assume
answering
his
the
answer
questions.
for 1stAmender.
It's
Don't
just
wait
really
for
hard
him.
for me to answer a question when you ask a question and then I start answering in 2 seconds. Like, what about this? Okay, so once again, what I've been saying is that for it to be hate speech, right, it needs to have the intent to cause harm. So for
You're not answering my question.
Misgendering, just be quiet, just for 2 seconds. Misgendering someone could be hate speech if you intend to cause them harm. But if you don't intend to cause them harm, it is not hate speech. Could it still be, from some people's perspective, that even though you didn't intend to cause harm, that causes harm? right? Could it, from some people's perspective, be like you might seem culpable? Yes, but that would not make it hate speech. We're talking about hate speech. We're not talking about like social consequences.
Cool. So I'm asking you again, right? If I was 15 years old, I yelled fire in a crowded movie theater, right? Kills 3 people as a result, right? I'm not talking about legality, right? I'm saying, do you think that 15-year-old ought be held morally culpable for their action?
What does morally culpable mean?
Are they responsible in some way?
According to who?
I'm asking you. Please, just answer the question. Please pay attention.
According to me, just
yes, according to you.
Literally blow a vein. According to
yes, I'm blowing a vein because I have to spell this shit out and I have to get it down into like less than 2 syllables per word, and it drives me insane. So please, right? If you're yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, do you feel that the 15-year-old should be held morally culpable, as in responsible?
If that 15-year-old had no idea, like let's say he was like
no idea, they're 15. They have no idea.
Do you want me to answer your questions, or do you want to just ramble and then I can speak afterwards? We can do
what because I've already entailed it.
Situation. If
that
15-year-old has no idea what they're doing, right? They just, for whatever reason, have no idea what they're doing, then no, I wouldn't say they're morally culpable, right? But if they had an idea that they're going to cause harm, or they had that they were taught that and they had that idea that they were going to cause harm by doing that, then yes, they should be morally culpable. That's what
I've had a question, Alex, that's very relevant. I have a very relevant question in this situation. If I was some kind of religious extremist and I was talking about needing to convert every single other religion to my religion, and that they need to do it or else they're going to suffer potential consequences, and I believe I'm going to help them by doing that, is that hate speech?
No.
It's not. Even though I'm saying their complete religion is invalid, I'm going to make them believe what I believe no matter what, and I'm not going to tolerate anything else. That's not hate speech.
Yeah, because you don't have hateful intent for the person.
See,
if
Jake,
you have hateful intent and you hate them, then that would be hateful, but it's not hateful. You actually think that you're doing them a favor. So no, it's
you
not.
have a bad definition.
So this is at least interesting. Hold on. Let me say something. Let me say something. Alex said something interesting.
Common definition.
2 seconds. I'm just going to quick. Okay. Let's go over to, sounds like 1stAmender. You had something to say. If it's really short and pithy, you promise? You have to be, it's got to be pithy. Go ahead.
So Alex, you said something very interesting, right? You said, okay, if they understood in some way, right, that it will cause harm, then they would be held morally culpable. Okay. Well, so if I provided, say, papers that show that deliberately misgendering does cause harm on those individuals, then you would be morally culpable by harming and misgendering them, right?
No, because I don't believe I'm going to cause them harm.
But what if I can empirically show that?
Can you show me that? If you can show me that this specific person I'm talking to, let's say, whatever, Nancy, right? And if you can show me like concrete evidence that me misgendering Nancy, specifically her, is going to cause her to commit suicide 5 minutes after, if you can prove that somehow, which I don't know how you would be able to, then I could actually.
Yeah, it's an unfalsifiable claim. I could make the same argument regarding the fire, right? We have no way to know whether or not people will actually trample. Maybe everybody gets out perfectly safely, but maybe sometimes that they don't. Does that still? I mean, it still holds moral. You are still culpable, and the fact that there is like even that potential of a dice roll, right? That would be. I still feel like that there's a level of moral culpability there. So I'm going to ask you again: if I can empirically show you that it causes harm to deliberately misgender people, then would you at least concede that that since it causes harm, maybe you shouldn't do that?
Well, there's a big difference between me not doing that and it being hate speech.
Fair enough. So, but I'm just trying to figure out if I can empirically show it that it causes harm, would you stop doing it?
Well, I don't necessarily do it to begin with.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm saying misgendering people. I just don't think
so,
that's because because of the points I made 5 times.
It's actually pretty easy though as well. If you want to look at the fire in the movie theater one, is there a fire, First Amender?
What? Yeah,
Is there a
person's
fire?
suicidal ideation is certainly an instance of that fire. Yes.
No, I'm saying if they're yelling fire, is there a fire? Yes. or
Oh,
no?
there's not a fire. They're just
There's not a
doing.
fire.
Yeah.
So they have malicious intent to actually harm.
Well, they
the
may
people,
just think it's
they're-
funny.
and they're lying about it as well.
They might just think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're lying and they have malicious intent, then yeah, sure, they should be held.
Sure.
responsible for
Yeah.
that. Cool.
Do you see the point Jake is trying to make? How's it disanalogous?
Right. What you're doing, right? Okay, is that ultimately by not respecting someone's gender, right? What you're doing is that you're discriminating against them based off of their,
No, you're just
their
making a truth
sex
claim.
orientation.
You're
No,
making
it's
a
not,
truth claim.
because it's an understandable difference between sex and gender, right?
it hate
We
speech,
understand
Jake?
sex and gender are two different things.
No, you
Is it-
feel that way. You feel like they're.
That's
two
not a
different
feeling.
things.
I
feel
literally
a
showed you the
different way.
neurobiological
Yeah.
responses
I-
and how
I
it
reject-
exists. Okay,
I-
so
I-
it's
I
not.
reject
It's
that.
not. It's
No,
not
I
my
feel a different
fifis
way.
anymore.
Yeah,
Stop
no, I
saying
reject
it's
that.
fifis. It's not
Listen,
fifis.
All right.
Jake,
Right?
you're the one
If I
saying
all
could
right.
show
You sound
a
like you're
physical
Hold on.
portion of the
We're going
brain that
to-
physically changes,
I love how
then
he
yeah,
just-
it's
We're on
not.
the
He
Hey,
same
does
page. I think we're on the same page that it's not about fifis, but I do want to hear from Jake. So go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I feel like First Amender is going to start shaking some pom-poms or something if he keeps on saying fifis so many times in a row. But yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if there's no intent there, that's what we're saying. So the fire in the movie theater analogy there was not only very boring, but it was also just not a good analogy, because if you're yelling fire in a movie theater and there's no fire, then you're lying about that and you have malicious intent. But if I am misgendering somebody, I completely reject that you think that there's a difference between sex and gender. So therefore, therefore you think that that's true. I reject that flat out. So I know what you feel, but I feel like it's just me making a truth claim. So if I feel like it's me making a truth claim, because that's what this argument is all about, is about how we feel. If I feel that way, then the intent isn't there, so it's not hate speech. It's actually very simple, First Amender.
All right, First Amender, I'll give you the same minute, and then I actually want to go back to William because he hasn't gotten to speak for a long time. First Amender, if you've got a really pithy, I'll give you like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, like what Jake
Can
just
I ask
had.
a question so we can move on from that one?
First
Yeah.
Amender, you game?
So if
well, I have a minute, I guess. Like Jake
Yeah.
the snake. The problem is there is a difference between gender and sex. You refuse to acknowledge, snake. Right? You're not acknowledging that.
rattlesnake,
Right? I'm showing you the difference. Okay. If you can imagine manly woman and womanly man, what is that incongruence? If gender and sex are the same thing, why can you imagine that in your head?
Sure. So First Amender, if there was a fire and the kid yelled,
Wow, another
fire,
question? You're going to do another
Yeah.
question to answer a question? Wow,
Well, I
amazing.
mean, I
Nice
just
dodge.
answered-
I
I
do
just
like the
answered your
dodge.
question.
I really
All right,
wish you would just like go and answer the
let's-
question.
Fogel,
Just
whenever
First
Fogel's
Amender,
losing the
I do
debate,
wanna-
he just filibusters and he just
Shut up,
goes. Actually
snake.
It's actually quite annoying. Rattlesnake.
All
Why don't you
right,
actually
If you wanna-
argue
let's-
the
all right.
position?
Let's
You
hear
can call
from
me
your pal,
Lord
Jake
Snake.
the
Lord
Snake.
Snake.
All right, go ahead, go ahead, Jake.
Lord Snake would be good.
Fucking gross.
So if there was a fire in the movie theater and then the kid yelled fire and then people got trampled, would he then be culpable for that?
All right, First Amender, I'm going to let you out of jail. You ready?
I didn't hear the full hypothetical. One more time.
Yeah, so I know you're confused and you're acting like you didn't hear it, but if there was a fire and then the kid yelled fire and then people got trampled as a result of that, would he be culpable?
Yes.
He would be culpable for that?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
even if-
intent doesn't necessarily, I mean, it can lessen a sentence, but for sure, like intent doesn't necessarily mean that you're like off the hook just because you don't realize it, right? Like if you're literally telling somebody like KYS on like YouTube and then they end up like actually harming themselves, then yeah, you would be culpable. So in this
Yeah,
instance,
I
when
mean,
you're
there's a very clear
specifically
difference.
misgendering somebody where you can cause harm on that individual, and I can empirically show that it causes harm on the individual to misgender them, then yeah, what you're doing is that you're basically revoking their very mortality.
I need
right?
to talk here,
It's hate
James,
speech.
because
The reason why it's hate speech is because you're attacking, threatening, or discriminating against them as based on their sexual orientation, right? That's the problem.
Stop spurging so other people can talk. So you're saying that if there is a fire, right, and he's
Because
making a truth
I hate
claim
people who want to
that
revoke human
there is
rights. I hate them. I hate them so much. They drive me insane. I really do not like them, right? And when I hear this, and you arguing this position, it really pisses me off.
Okay, so if there is a fire and he's making the truth claim and he's telling people that there's a fire, and then in the stampede, even though he has done the right thing by telling people there's a fire, then he should be held culpable for the deaths of those people. So just to let everybody in the audience know, if there's ever a fire, guys, don't yell fire.
I didn't hear the part where you said that there's an actual fire. If there is an actual fire, obviously you have to tell people that there's a fire. Can you stop with the personal attacks? I genuinely want to have an actual conversation, right? But when you come in and you just do your stupid oh Lord, this Lord, it's fucking idiotic, right? I'm so sitting here showing you the empirical. Yeah, because I'm showing the empirical study and you won't change your opinion. You won't change your argument. You can't adapt. I'm showing you the reality of the situation. And by the way, there are studies that do show that it empirically causes harm to deliberately misgender trans people. Yes. So doing that literally causes that harm. You're revoking them based off of their literal identity. It is assumed that when you walk outside and another person identifies you, your identity is taken into account, right? And Lord is not part of your identity. That's stupid.
What's stupid about it?
I hate this.
Tell me what's stupid about it.
Because it's not the same as gender.
Well, hopefully I'm never hopefully I'm never in a crowded cinema with you with a fire, First Amender. Hopefully I'm never in that situation.
Yeah, I'm just leaving quietly while you, I don't know.
This might be a good opportunity. William has been very patient man, tremendous patience. William, have you got anything you want to share? I'm going to put you on unmute.
Thank you. So Jake, Rattlesnake, I wanted to ask you a question, but I don't want to give you the floor, so I'm going to just assume your answer. If we yelled fire in a crowded theater and I hate everyone in the theater and it caused them to get hurt, is that hate speech? I don't think anyone would call that hate speech. Hate speech isn't necessarily about you hating the people you're talking to or you're talking about. Hate speech has to do with the contempt you have for people that you may be talking about. Hate has to do with potentially spreading certain kind of feelings towards other people. Hate has to do with marginalizing certain groups, even if you don't necessarily hate them. And that's why I brought up that scenario of if I have a driving urge to convert every single person of every single religion, and I will not acknowledge their existence unless they convert to my religion, and I love them because I want to do that for them, that is really easy to call that hate speech because you are completely denying these people's their validity. You are not acknowledging what they truly believe. You won't let them believe what they want to believe. That is very easily definable as hate speech. Your definition is not the commonly used one. I would not go with,
oh, you lot in here, Will. Are we talking?
This is my one chance, dude. This is my one chance. I got like 2 seconds to talk this whole debate. So give me one moment here. Your definition's messed up, Jake.
Okay, you said a lot there, but yeah, we can take it one by one if you want. Or I mean, let me ask you this, Will. Just say, if studies show that it hurts people's feelings to call them fat, but it made society vastly more healthy at the expense of a few fat people, and it reduced all of this harm, would you do it?
That's a very different situation. It really depends on how much harm it's going to give them.
I mean, right? If you're talking about harassment of fat people, then no, I don't like that either.
First Amendment, come on.
Talking to Will.
Okay, so it really depends, right? Have you ever heard of those who walk away from alma loss? It presents this situation of if it harms one person but it helps everybody else, is it going to be worth it? Well, it might depend, right? How much are you harming these people? Are you harming them to the point of unaliving themselves? Okay, maybe it's not worth it, right? It depends. It's not that simple.
Just to let you know again. The studies show that if you call a few of these people fat, it makes society vastly more healthy. So if you're looking at it from the utility points in the direction that calling these people fat reduces harm greatly.
You haven't described how much harm it's done to the people. You haven't described it. If it causes them
towards...
There's
no study that shows that.
No, but the hypothetical, you haven't described how much harm it's done to those individuals. If it's going to drive them to, harming themselves, then maybe it's not worth it. If it's, oh, it just makes them hurts their feelings for a few seconds, then it makes everyone happy, then maybe it is worth it. It really depends. How severe is the harm? You're not specifying because that would introduce nuance, and you don't want to acknowledge that.
What do you mean I don't want to acknowledge that? I'm just asking you a pretty simple question. It makes society much, much more healthy. And then you're trying, and then you're trying to say here, well, then the extent to which it could hurt the people who are fat. No, I'm saying for a very, very small few people, it hurts their feelings. But for society, it makes society a lot more healthy. Would you do it?
You haven't read Those Who Walk Away from Allah. So if there was one child in one basement somewhere and you're torturing him 24/7, but it makes the entire city perfectly wonderful and healthy, is that worth it utility-wise?
Why don't you answer
Jake,
my question instead? Why don't you answer my question?
It's proving the point that the nuance,
question.
you're not presenting the nuance, right? You're not showing how much nuance there is. How much is it harming the people, right? Jake, answer me. That you presented the hypothetical. How much is it harming them?
How much is it harming who? The fatties?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes them feel sad.
How much?
It makes them feel really, really sad, okay? Like depressed. Like they can't get out of bed. They can't get out of bed, but then millions of people
ruin their
are more
life?
healthy.
Like it might ruin their life?
Yeah. For this small amount of people,
it
it ruins their life. But for the vast majority of society, they're much more healthy. They've got more sunlight. They're exercising. Their family lives are better. Their work lives are better.
I don't
want to
abandon
because they're not fat.
I don't want to abandon a few people, right? I'm not going to abandon them. And I think we can take those few people and we can all become healthy together. How about that, Jake? I don't think we need to sacrifice those few to save the many.
Sunshine and Rainbows and John Lennon's Imagine all sitting around.
It's called working together, Jake. It's called working together and trying to build a better future.
Is what it's called.
It's building a better future. Well, no, it's you not liking the answer to the question, Jake, because you don't want to acknowledge the nuance that reality has in these complicated situations. And if you disregard, people's personal identities, it is considered hate speech in most contexts. And just because you want to make your own definition of hate speech says you have to hate the individual if you want to commit hate speech, that's not how most people define the word. And you're wrong in most contexts.
I think you'll find it is. I think that you'll find that intent is actually very important. And whatever's in somebody's heart is actually very important when it comes to hate speech. If you're making a truth claim, however, then that's very different. That's just what you guys haven't been able to contend with tonight. I was actually expecting better tonight, but oh well.
Why can't you make a truth claim and also not misgender them, Jake?
Because then you wouldn't be making the truth claim, Will.
No, of course you can't. You can use non-gendered language, Jake. I've said that to you 10 times and you don't listen. And that's okay. You don't want to listen because you don't want to admit the reality of the situation. You can use they, them pronouns. You can call them by their name. Very simple, very basic. You can accept these people into your society and not have to feel like you're lying to yourself or whatever thing your mental gymnastics you're doing.
I mean,
you can do
nice
that. Respect them. You can respect. I've answered it, and you just don't want to listen to it. You don't want to listen. That's another one.
No, you actually didn't answer.
You don't want to listen. You don't want to acknowledge the nuance. So there are so many more people who are going to be harmed by misgendering people, and you don't want to acknowledge those harms. And
there are so many more people who are going to be harmed. Didn't I just give you a hypothetical where a lot more people were going to have their harm reduced if you called people fat, but you wouldn't do it?
Yes, harm isn't a binary, right? Harm is a spectrum. It's how much you're harmed. It's not are you harmed or are you not harmed.
Tell me the spectrum of harm.
Well, you could, like you said, you could feel bad for a moment. You could feel bad for the rest of your life. You could feel so bad that you want to stop existing on this world, right? Those are not the same equivalences of sadness. You would agree, obviously, Jake.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a spectrum of sadness. So when you consider that spectrum and you have to consider, okay, how much harm am I putting on this one person versus how much harm am I putting on the other people? If just because it's a small number of people doesn't mean it's going to win, because the amount of harm you can put on them is far more severe. So you'd say that the ultimate harm is
death, right? If it is death. If this person unalives themselves, that would be the ultimate form of harm, right?
Maybe they could consider it.
So then if the whole population is much less healthy, which means much more death, life expectancy is going down, people have terminal illnesses, and you won't call someone fat to avoid that? Look at all this.
But we provide them what they need in order to maintain a healthier lifestyle, right? But we don't go out of our way to harass somebody for being fat. You understand the difference, right? When you're specifically misgendering somebody and they're asking you to not misgender them, you're deliberately going out of your way to harass them. You are literally impacting and creating hate speech by propagating that. Yes.
Oh, 1stAmender answered the question less than Will. I didn't think that was possible. But anyways, back to Will.
I think Jake should have a turn. I think Alex should have a turn.
Go for it.
Alex is a nice young man. Let's make sure he's I unmuted you, Alex. Go ahead.
Nice young man, Alex.
Well, I didn't even have a choice. I was muted for like 10 minutes.
So, I'm sorry, it was an accident.
You're good. You're good. I want to change gears slightly because I feel like we beat this horse to death. Specifically, 1stAmender. I am someone who wants to see liberals stop losing every election. You're doing such a massive disservice to your own side. You're playing right into the angry leftist snowflakes role and turning off literally every undecided.
What is this ad hom?
It's an opinion, which I think is very
All right,
accurate.
cold, not relevant to anything, but okay.
Okay.
I mean, I
sure.
guess if you
All
want to
right,
just
what-
like
here, okay,
lambast
but
me
Alex-
instead of address
Alex-
anything
all right,
of what I've
First
said.
Amender. All right,
guess you
just
could do
because
that.
Alex has been waiting for like 10 minutes, let's give him a chance.
Well,
All
I
right,
think-
yeah,
I
let's
think
ad
it-
hom him for 5 minutes, sure.
I think okay, I know you just want to do all the rambling yourself. I think it's just an important part of this thing, which is whether like people like 1stAmender should even be representing trans rights, or they're just doing more harm than good to their own cause. I think that would just be an interesting thing to explore, since I feel like we've kind of reached a stalemate on this specific subtopic. But hey, it's up to you, James.
First Amender, what are your thoughts?
But
Do you
that
agree?
entire thing was just a dumb ad hom and has nothing to do with what I had said or what I have argued or the neurobiological findings. I showed everybody in the chat that it exists, and then we're talking about the existence of trans people, and then we're also showing how misgendering somebody can in fact cause harm. And so if it can cause harm by deliberately misgendering them, then yeah, it would technically be hate speech. Hating on a fat person for being fat and deliberately being hateful towards them for being fat is also hate speech. These are all hate speech.
Do you think you're helping trans people and trans rights?
I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm screaming at a wall,
Isn't that
left in and day out. And there are people that will never, ever be convinced of the argument, regardless of anything. And hopefully there are people that are at least in the chat that can see some level of reason and want to establish human decency on the internet.
all they see is like a stereotype of like an angry liberal snowflake.
Why are we talking about
Okay,
First
I
Amender? This
don't
is a
care.
complete ad hom. Why are we
It
doing
is just,
this?
yes,
shouldn't-
exactly.
we
It's
shouldn't
just a dumb
entertain
ad
this.
hom. Correct.
No, entertain this ad hominem.
I'm personally trying to insult you. I'm not actually trying to personally insult you. I'm just trying to explain to you the irony of, like, I don't actually think this applies to Will, but the way you present your side actually does more harm than good to your side.
I just have very little tolerance towards people who are hateful towards other people and want to revoke
Right,
basic
so
human
just
rights.
everyone who
Like, yes, I'm extremely disrespectful to people like that. Yes, I'm extremely inflammatory towards people that want to spread hate speech towards other people, and that like they inflame other more hate speech. I mean, there are laws on the books right now that are being discriminatory towards trans people, and we have to sit here and have the stupid discussion as to whether or not that misgendering somebody is hate speech.
You decided
Obviously,
to
it's
come on
hate
this
speech.
panel. No one forced you on here. You weren't. This wasn't against your will.
No, I hope there's a minority of people that can see reason. I hope. I can only hope. I don't see that would be
You
the case for
actually
Alex,
care?
especially for Jake the Snake.
Do you actually care if you're actually progressing your
I do care. I do
First
care.
Amender, you
I
have to
care
understand
intensely
a
about trans
big
people.
goal of these people that we debate on here are trying to make us look bad. So we have to make sure that we don't let them get to us, right? They're
Yeah.
going to say things that purposefully
I actually
try to
don't
Yeah.
wanna make
insult
you
us.
The
look
problem
bad.
is,
Yeah.
I
the
think
problem
that
is, Will,
politically, I
my
agree with
only
you guys on, like,
issue
the
is,
majority of shit, with the exception of some social issues. So
my only,
really
my,
trying to-
I mean,
I'm
we
just
could
trying to
probably
point
have a
out,
decent
this is-
discussion.
this is
My only
big.
problem is, Will, is that I don't feel like, here's the thing. Democrats and the left wingers have been intensely very respectful towards people on the right, right? And the problem is that these people don't play fair, right? They will lambast you. They will ad hom
You
you.
think
They
I'm
will
on the
not
right?
provide a single study. They will just double, triple, and quadruple down on the same horrible talking point over and over and over.
You're right.
And here's the
That's why
problem.
you have to
They
be
want to
stronger for
revoke
it.
the basic human rights. That's basically what we're talking about, revoking basic human rights. And so I'm supposed to sit here on one side where one side argues for basic human rights and the other one wants to put trans people in a blender. No, I don't
one wants to
respect
put
you.
trans
Not
people
only am I not going to respect you, I'm going to treat you like garbage because you're a garbage human being by treating people like garbage. Yes, you're a bad person. Yes.
Let it out. Okay.
Yes, and I don't believe that we
All
should
right.
treat bad people
Let's
as
wait.
if that they're
Hold
good.
on, hold on.
No respect for right-wing chuds. No respect.
Oh, so I'm right wing, even though I vote.
All right. I hate to interrupt Alex. He was saying that even though he voted Democrat, I think he was saying, but I do want to give a chance to any last thoughts before we go into the Q&A, gentlemen. As Jerry Springer would say, if we want to draw together the threads of this, any final thoughts from anybody? Jake, 30 seconds each.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that Fogel is actually one of the most hateful people I have ever met. We have seen a genuine meltdown tonight, which has not only been very entertaining, but just the absolute hypocrisy that we have seen in this debate is unbelievable. Basically, what Fogel thinks is that hate speech is okay when Fogel does it. Basically, just on his own preferences. If Fogel thinks it's okay to be hateful, then you can be hateful. And that's how we can define hate speech, because he's been extremely hateful tonight. And I think that the whole entire chat and the whole entire audience can see that. So basically, what it comes down to is whatever Fogel thinks is hateful is hateful. So I reject that, Fogel.
Okay. We'll go over to, we'll just striate it. We'll go to 1stAmender. My guess is you don't agree with that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the dumb ad hom that doesn't have anything to do with the topic. Yeah, correct. I don't agree with it. Yeah, it's a dumb ad hom and has absolutely nothing to do with the reality of the situation. You're revoking basic human rights among trans people, and you're a bad person for it. Yeah, and I don't believe I should respect you.
We'll go over to this Alex fellow. Here he is, patiently waiting. Look at him, nice young man. Here you go, Alex.
I appreciate you calling me a nice young man multiple times in a debate. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that the other side did not prove their argument. There's not even that much distance between me and Will. I think we actually agreed on a few things. There's a lot of difference between me and 1stAmender. Once again, just the point that I've been making is that hate speech requires hateful intent. And so while misgendering someone could be hate speech, if you're intending to cause them harm, if you're not, if you're someone who just believes there's two genders and you're just basically pointing out your version of the truth, then that is actually not hate speech. Also, the reason I brought that up is because it is just, to me, blows my mind how people like 1stAmender, who want to support trans people and want to support like left-leaning causes, actually wind up doing so much more harm to those causes than actually benefiting them. Because whenever they talk with this kind of rhetoric, all it does is just take every normie, every person, and just massively, massively turns them off from whatever the fuck the side is. And it's just like, for someone like,
gotta kick it over.
Oh,
Look, William is patiently waiting, but at the same time, simultaneously, he wants to speak. Go ahead, Alex. Give you a chance to wrap up.
Yeah, so I was just saying, it's just like frustrating to me, someone like that who's on kind of economic issues very much on the left and like wants to see Democrats stop losing every single fucking election. When I come across people like 1stAmender, who I don't have enough information on whether he actually has bad intent or not, but who's objectively, from my perspective, just causing so much more harm to liberal causes, just filling into the role of just the typical,
I want to go to William.
unheard left-wing snowflake. Go ahead.
William, go ahead.
All right. So I think I was pretty clear. My points is that basic human respect is abiding by someone's gender pronouns. It's very easy to do. And honestly, if you really, really feel in your heart you can't do it, you can just use gender neutral pronouns or just use their name. You can respect them and not gender them at the same time. That we live in this world. It's amazing. But more respect would be just abiding by the pronouns. It doesn't cost you anything. But to the meta conversation from Alex, I think what 1stAmender is doing is great by coming on here talking about these topics is very important. I praise him. I think we should have more liberals doing this. I also think at the same time we have to know that we're coming into these debates with cards against us. They're going to try to make us look bad. We have to try to keep our cool, and we have to be strong when they're pushing up buttons and trying to discredit humanity, trying to say the most slimy things you can imagine. You still got to stay strong and not let them get to you. Otherwise, it doesn't make your side look the strongest.
I do want to mention before we jump into the Q&A, folks, I have already mentioned it, but I have to mention it again in case you forgot. DebateCon 5, our 2-day debate conference put on by Modern Day Debate, is this Saturday and Sunday in Newark, New Jersey. If you are anywhere near, folks, you got to come. Check out the link in the description box right now to get your tickets. Some ticket types have already sold out, so don't put this off. It's going to be huge. We are excited to see you there in person. See these debates happen. It is going to be a lively event. And with that, we're going to jump into the Q&A. Don't want to say thanks for your questions, folks. Do want to say thank you to all our speakers. I know it's always lively here. We have a lot of rough and tumble debates, blood sports, but they're all good sports. So we do appreciate them being here. This first one coming in from Wrongful Rage says, shocker, misgendering is not hate speech. If you disregard religious people by telling them God isn't real, are you committing hate speech? Or are you merely projecting your worldview upon them? 1stAmender,
I mean, saying God isn't real, I don't believe it's hate speech, because I don't believe that it's like your very identity. However, I think like if I'm going into a church or whatever, or like people just believe in that really heavily, or say, for example, if like, you know, say like if they were in a precarious situation as like a drug user or something, and like proclaiming to them that God doesn't exist, it could absolutely be hateful. Sure.
So you're saying that you're making a truth claim, 1stAmender? Is that what you're saying? Even though it hurts the person, you're making a truth claim, so it's not hate speech? Is that what you're saying?
Well, God doesn't exist. It's true that God does not exist, but I mean,
So you're making a
regardless of
truth
the
claim?
fact, I would still treat them with respect.
So you're
I
making
would
a
jump
truth
to the
say-
next
claim?
question. I hate to do this, gentlemen, but we have so many questions that we have to keep the rebuttals to a minimum because there are a lot.
Really?
People have been so pumped about this debate. I got to tell you, the audience has been rocking in the live chat. The Poor Man's Poet 33 says, let's effing go, Jake. Rattlesnake Crew is in the house. Show these soft. Hucky soy boys. We are A&D. I'm sure they mean that with love. Wrongful Rage says, why is emotional blackmail acceptable when it comes to misgendering people who are merely confused, when it's never acceptable under other circumstances, i.e. relationships, family, or in business?
Because we're talking about harassing people on the basis of their identity.
I
You
think
got
they
it.
So
were.
now
I
it's harassment.
think they were
So now
agreeing
it's
with us.
harassment, 1stAmender.
It is harassment.
Wrongful
So
Rage
now
says,
we've switched it from
why
hate
is
speech to
emotional
harassment.
blackmail? Oh, we got that one. Sorry about that.
It
10
agreed
toes.
with our point.
Is
10
it
toes
harassment?
Henderson.
They go up to you.
Gentlemen, can't have too many rebuttals. They say, telling me I have to recognize someone as a gender I don't believe they are causes me harm. Why don't you care about the harm to me?
Use they them
Fantastic.
pronouns.
You don't have to. You don't have to acknowledge their gender. Use they, them, use their name. Easy.
Yeah, very easy. You don't have to acknowledge it.
Blake says, question for the yes side. If someone is a pedo and gets suicidal, if they can't touch the little ones, do we allow them to touch the little ones to curb
No,
their
you're harming
suicidal
children.
thoughts? Huh?
No, you're harming children. You're harming children.
The
This
harm
is
that
not harm.
results.
I think the
the-
question should be rephrased. Are we allowed to call
Jesus.
them pedo?
The harm that results from letting them do that far outweighs the harm that you would cause by calling them a name they don't like or whatever.
Let me just rephrase it and say we're not talking about letting them touch. Obviously, everyone agrees you wouldn't. But what about just calling them pedo? Even that caused them massive, massive suicidal thoughts. But just me calling them pedo, which is what they are.
There's
If
no
you're doing
problem.
it to a point that they want suicidal ideation, then
I mean, you
maybe
kind
should
of have
stop.
to identify them in order for them to not cause harm in the future. Like, I don't. Yeah,
So be
I'm
nice
sorry.
To, be nice
It's
to the pedos,
it's
then, Will.
you're talking about a group of people where they're physically causing harm to people, but like if you're talking about like, oh, like should it be easier for someone to come out as a pedo and then like allow for easier rehabilitative processes so that way less kids get harmed? Absolutely. Like,
So just
I don't
quickly,
know.
1stAmender, so you're saying that you should do it actually, because if you shame them to a certain extent, then they will be less likely to perpetrate what they're doing, which is harmful to society?
That I don't think that's true.
But that's what you just said, though. You said that you
No,
should.
that's not what I just said.
You said that you should
Right,
be able
listen
to
to
call
what
them
I
that
say.
because you said that you should be able to call them that because if you call them that, then they won't do what they were doing.
That's not what I said. I didn't say that at all.
Okay, so you think that you shouldn't be able to call them a pedo then, if it hurts them?
What? I mean, if you're talking about somebody who just like got out of prison or whatever, right, and is trying to like get their life, going out of your way to call them like a pedo in order to like get them to lose their job is horrendous. Yeah, that's a terrible action. Like I believe that, I mean, unless if I don't know, is there kids involved though? Like, are they working at a daycare? Then yeah, I would not consider that to be harmful, right? I'm mitigating the harm here is kind of my point.
Mitigating the harm to the pedos. Okay.
To people in general,
jump to the next
overall society.
This is the way the culture's going.
Says Alex has no moral grounding. Jake, however, knows God's truth of two genders that cannot be changed. His truth does not fit the definition as it implies intent. Sorry, girls, live to simp another day.
Okay. I don't know.
Is- I'm not
Well, you
sure
don't have a
what
rebuttal to that?
I'm not religious. That is true.
But it is interesting. Okay, but nonetheless,
Hey,
they're
Alex?
strange bedfellows if Jake happens to be religious and PWF happens to not be, and they're nonetheless in agreement on the trans issue.
I
let's
understand
see.
the Shakespearean reference there, but bedfellows, we are not, my friend.
This one from Retro Reister Gaming says, why are these soy boys getting so worked up defending men wearing dresses?
Yeah, because I'm not talking about men wearing dresses. I'm talking about people's very identity and revoking that identity. It is assumed that when you walk outside that your identity is respected. And so I would like to be treated how others would treat me. So it's the same situation. Like I just treat them with respect.
You keep on using this word revoking First Amendment, and that's absurd.
Yeah, you're
because
revoking human rights by denying people's their identity.
If you believe that is your identity, like I believe that I'm a lord, if somebody doesn't call me a lord, I'm still going to be a lord, right?
I've already showed you empirically how that's not the case and how they're disanalogous. Stop doubling down on the dumb
Why don't you
argument,
make an argument
and that you
First
provide
Amender,
no
instead of just
rebuttal.
getting grumpy about
I
everything?
gave you
You
the
just get grumpy
argument.
about
You just
everything.
refuse to acknowledge it.
Jake the broken
Okay.
record. Jake the jukebox.
We'll jump in.
Jake,
That wasn't very
snake.
good, Will. That wasn't very good.
What an appropriate
Come up with new
name.
material,
A
Jake.
snake. A
This
You guys
one
need to
from
come up with an argument.
slimy,
Come up with an argument, and then I'll.
Jim
crawling on his
Bob.
fucking
Well, a
belly
snake is someone that
snake.
betrays
Alright.
someone. I
Sneaky,
don't really
jump
see
to
any
the next
Sneaky little
betrayal.
snake.
This one
You could
from
say.
Made by Jim Bob says, 1stAmender, is it hate speech if the neurologist tells someone they have a trans brain if they don't experience having a trans brain?
That's fair. It is not transphobic because now we can then exhibit the difference between an internal gender characteristics to what can be observed externally. Obviously, there's multitude of factors, not just like this specific portion in a person's brain, right? Gender is complex, and there's a lot of different factors that go into it, right? It could be an endocrinological response. It can happen as early as, even before birth. These endocrinological responses, there can be societal factors that are involved. It's complex. Gender is complex.
So your brain study, it doesn't matter then, First Amender? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Because
Well, it is.
it's
That's what you just
complex,
said.
then therefore brain study no matter. What a
This
dumb
one
thing to
coming in.
say.
I love it how
This-
every time you get absolutely destroyed, First Amender, you just get grumpy and you just say, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
really
because it's
stupid."
idiotic. It's a
You
dumb
just get
thing to say.
refuted, and then
Yes,
you say,
it's
"That's
dumb. It's dumb. It's a very
Okay,
dumb
First
thing.
Amender.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
high tier stuff.
Yep, it's
Don't
very
let
high
this-
tier.
don't let
Yeah,
this
about
talk.
as high tier as you.
This
Wow,
one from
I was
Cole
expecting better.
Marshall. Cole Marshall says, Jake absolutely killed it. Great job. First time, Jake, and can't wait to see more debates with you. And Samuel Tahi says, schizophrenics harm themselves. Call them Lord. This one from Retro Reister Gaming says, made by Jim Bob, can, quote, a cis woman identify as a trans woman? Get Christo to call in.
This is a fundamental misunderstanding of what cis woman means. It literally means that you have the same gender as your sex. So if you're a trans woman, then you would not be cis anymore. So yeah.
And I don't
Rachel-
identify as cis, actually. So First Amender, is it hate speech if you call me a cis male and I don't identify?
But it just
identify
means
as
your
that?
gender aligns with your sex. You are
Yeah, no,
cis.
I reject that. So is that hate speech because that's not my identity?
It's just the terminology that is used regarding specific
Yeah, I
like,
respect. I reject the
neurobiological
terminology.
responses.
What's your gender, Jake? What's your gender?
My sex is I'm a male.
That's not what I asked you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm a
look,
male.
you don't understand what gender is. What a shocker.
Yeah, he doesn't understand it. Yeah.
I'm a male
Surprise.
and I'm
Sex
a
is
man.
different from gender.
There you go, Will. I'm a
Also,
man.
so you know the
Good
difference.
one.
You know
Well,
the
but they
difference
can
now.
they can imagine the difference between manly woman and womanly man. They can immediately know what that is. But if they didn't understand the difference between sex and gender, then it would be equivalent to me saying hot cold. But you can imagine womanly man and you can imagine manly woman. So what is that incongruence?
Well, I
What
mean,
do you call that incongruence?
a womanly man is
Not an
observable, and
incongruence.
I know a
For the
woman.
world
I know
are
a womanly
acceptable.
man when I see one.
Yeah, so
But I'm
this
still a man, I
something
think.
doesn't align with their typical sex, right?
I know.
What is that something?
I don't know.
First
You tell
Amender,
me,
how many-
First
how many-
Amender. Is
how
it a
many
micro
fingers-
penis? What
It's
is it?
called gender.
First
Will,
Amender, how
I'm
many-
sorry.
how many
fucking
fingers do humans-
snake? You gross.
Don't be
Ew.
so angry at your
God.
partner.
First
What the
Amender,
hell?
how many
I
fingers do
hate these
humans
people.
have?
I hate them. I hate them.
I know you do.
How many
That's
fingers
actually
get
like
at
hate
Alex?
speech. It's hilarious.
Yes,
How many-
this is
I
hate
love this
speech.
guy.
How many
I love
fingers
this
do
guy.
humans
Jump.
have?
I'm willing to
Jumping into this
admit
one.
when I'm being hateful.
How many
yes.
fingers do
This
humans
one.
have?
This
Yep,
one from
okay.
Rachel
10.
Wilson says, please ask Mr. First Amender how long he has been a member of the Lollipop Guild. What does this mean, First Amender? You like
I'm
candy?
assuming that's from
Wizard of Oz.
that's the Wizard of Oz trope. Like, because I'm short. I'm
Calling him
5'11",
short.
not that short.
Let's see.
Do I look
5'11"
short?
in heels, maybe.
I honestly
Lollipop
would
Guild
No,
is the
5'11".
Munchkins from Wizard of Oz.
This one from Ten
Yeah,
Toes Hemerson.
I
Sounds
said in
all
heels.
wicked.
That's what we were
5'11"
hoping
in
for.
heels
Show
and
us your
makeup,
body.
maybe.
Okay.
He's pretty
This one
tall.
from
Look at that. Average height.
Ten Toes.
I was
Ten
worried about
Toes says, McLovin is mad. He's getting wrecked by an Aussie. I can relate. I would be too, especially if all I had was harm, hope, and seethe. Also, if Lord isn't a gender, how many are there? What makes it one?
I didn't get the last part, the final
What?
part.
What makes a gender a
If
gender?
Lord isn't a
And how many
gender,
are
how
there?
many are there? And what makes it one? What makes something a gender?
I would love to take that. If my intro did
go
a
for it,
really
Will. You'll
specific,
probably have a better answer than me.
I really tried to break it down in my intro. There's two different categories. There's gender identity and there's gender expression, right? Gender identity is an internal, subjective viewpoint of yourself. It cannot be wrong because it is your own opinion about your own identity. There's no wrongness in that. Gender expression is dictated by your society. There's masculine, there's feminine. And whatever the society dictates as masculine and feminine is what it is going to be. It's an intersubjective reality. And you can have it both ways. You can be a masculine woman and a feminine man. There's no rules contradicting that.
Yeah, so how many genders are there? That's what he asked.
It's a spectrum. So
Yeah, so
there's
how
an
many are there,
infinite
Will?
number. It's an
There's an
infinite number.
Okay.
Because it's a spectrum. If you know what a
Okay.
spectrum is, I would love to explain it to you. Jake, do you want me to explain it?
I want a number, Will. How many are there?
Oh, I told you the
And if there's an
concept is
infinite
an
number,
infinite number.
Then to the stupid chatter's question, then why is Lord not a gender, Will?
It could be your personal gender identity. I don't think.
Then
you're
I
being
want you to
honest about
respect it, Will. I want you to call
I
me
don't-
Lord. And you have been engaging in hate speech. I rest
I
my
don't
case.
believe that there
You
are-
lost the debate again.
I don't
You
believe
lost the
that there
debate, Will.
are infinite genders. I believe that there is a bimodal distribution of sex and gender identity that typically aligns with male or female, but there exists somewheres in between. Sometimes it can be entirely social, and so it could be, say, non-binary. So I just elicit that there's three.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Grimnack says McLovin is fuming. Get 'em, Jake. Let's see. They say, Raw Dog says, when did they, them go from plural to meaning singular? Stop trying to change the English language. Hashtag rattlesnake, hashtag my lord.
The language
Wow,
is
they're
a
not
living-
figuring this out.
Language lives.
They
it
don't
doesn't
understand that it's
not
singular.
a stagnant thing. Language is
You
not a
guys just
stagnant
lost the
thing.
debate.
Just because it.
It's like,
I
what?
will agree with you on
before.
that one, Will.
Me and Alex are best buds. Ugh.
I think, yeah, we have more agreement than probably disagreement.
Certainly have
Yeah.
chemistry. Dan Goldstein says, First Amender is hateful. It's hateful for you to not.
Yes, to transphobes, I'm very hateful. Yes.
Just first.
Do you
Say
think I'm
it's-
a transphobe? Real quick.
Sorry, go ahead and finish.
Do you
Do you think
I'm
that Alex is a transphobe?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, this one from Dan Goldstein says, First Amender, is it hateful for you to not get in the crystal and also for you to not affirm Lord Rattlesnake's identity? Do better.
Again, Lord isn't a gender. I don't know what you're
Answer the
talking
question
about.
about the crystals, dude.
I don't know what the hell the crystals is. Is this some stupid right-wing chud
Dude,
4chan
no.
nonsense, or is this some
Dude,
actual
it's obvious.
stuff?
How do you not understand that? He said, "How is it offensive to not get in the crystal?"
I don't know what that is.
It's a dog whistle. Don't
Oh,
acknowledge it, First
dude.
Amendment.
Got it.
I don't want to explain this. Anyway, let's move on. I can't explain this.
Andrew
simple
likes to
concept.
collect crystals. He thinks they have power. This one from Retro says, Christ is Lord. And Cole Marshall says, great job making the leftist spurg. Jake, not one step back.
What the fuck? Why is everyone saying, "Oh, go Jake, go Jake"? Where's go Alex? What the fuck?
Jake has
Because you're
Lonely at the
agreeing
top.
too much with
Lonely
us.
at the
That's
top,
why.
Alex.
That's why you're being too reasonable. You have to be like a right-wing chud piece of garbage.
I
You
thought-
get
I
up in the
thought- I
morning
thought I was
and you
a
literally
potential
just like,
transphobe. I
ooh, I
thought I was
gotta
a
drink
potential-
leftist cheers in the morning, and you gotta be like
I thought
that.
I was a potential transphobe. I don't
They
know.
taste so sweet. So
Oh.
sweet
this
tonight.
one from Gentleman Damon says, I'm a psych NP. I think that means nurse practitioner. I have done GAC, but I don't do it for free. Unless you're my patient, I'm assigning you the pronouns that fit my perspective of you. How do you like them apples, First Amender?
I don't believe that you're a psychologist. What?
This one from Carlos says, Jake won in the open. Thanks, Modern Day Debate, for hosting Lord Rattlesnake, King of Australia. Let's see. Wrongful Rage says, why should we believe those that don't even know the scientific method? Your sociological studies suffer from a big problem. They can't be replicated. First, Soy Mender.
That's also not true. And secondly, I did not even list a sociological study. I listed a neurobiological one. By the way, there's more than just that. There's multiple fields of study that show the same exact thing in completely different fields of study. The facts are on my side here, regardless of whether or not it is in vogue, is irrelevant.
So, First Amender, if you did a scan of my brain and you saw that I had some of those qualities that you listed, that would be in the trans brain, would I be a trans woman?
You could be, but I would ask you what your gender was.
Yeah, I say
right?
no.
Because your internal gender, because obviously, like how you feel internally can only be really explained by you. We don't really have any way to scan you and confirm that you're that. Yeah, we just have to kind of ask you because it comes down to your phenomenology.
So once again, your brain scans are irrelevant, First Amender. Once again, First Amender, you've just admitted,
they're not irrelevant.
That your
they show existence. They show the phenomenology existing on an empirical level. But yeah, it's complicated. Gender is complicated. It's not a perfect binary like you're requesting, but it is valid.
So I understand, First Amender, that what you hold on, Alex.
These people.
So I understand, First Amender, that what you want to do is you want to spurg out and say, you want to go into full-on Joker mode.
Not a spurg out. I'm pointing out the facts.
You're spurging out.
You just don't like it, and you just like, oh, soy Jack. We're literally an idiocracy right now.
Listen,
no studies. Literally just being a right-wing chud, and you just repeat, and you never argue it. It's ridiculous.
James, can I make a point?
I do want to get.
Can I make a point?
Just a super brief point, just because I know that all the questions are First Amender. But Jake, what have you got?
Yeah. So, you know what, First Amender, Vogel, maybe I am too stupid to understand this, but, I'm just going to say that your studies are actually irrelevant based on your own logic. And you've said that many times here, because I just asked you if I could become a trans woman. If I am a trans woman, if it shows that in my brain, and then you said, no, it's based on how you feel. So once again, First Amender, I reject your studies.
This one from Even Lord says, established titles have been discovered that they buy no land and they plant no trees. They're a Chinese, Hong Kong-based company.
Yeah,
sorry, my Lord Jake.
That doesn't change anything, but yeah.
Thanks for not misgendering me.
This one from Raw Dog says, to verify the truth, you have to Crocodile Dundee them. If you don't understand, watch the movie. Also, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, in all caps, will never hurt me. Go back to basics, my lord / crew.
Yep.
This one from Marcus Antonio says, first offender has resting. Okay, this is weird. Let's see. First Amender is not offended anybody. This one, Austin Graham, that we know of, says, Daddy, quote, said, you throw like a girl, unquote. Mama said, quote, you can be whatever you want to be. Neither taught you, quote, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. What are you guys talking about? Marcus Antonio says, first offender, shave your arms, bro. Daddy Mender, chill. Oh, someone's calling you daddy. 1stAmender. How much do you like that?
I don't know. I don't know. I just listen. I mean, I get like it's all fun and games, but it's like it really does genuinely. It's very, very upsetting knowing that there's like this many people that just want to revoke human rights, and just seeing like all of the hate online. It's, I don't know. It's honestly, it's really upsetting to see, because it's like, I don't know where the United States has gone. I mean, we're going to look at this 30 years into the future and realize like all of this nonsense was wrong, right?
What's a human right, 1stAmender?
But
That's a
I
whole
would
nother
I would
debate.
appeal to the negative rights of inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, and what makes trans rights a human right?
Trans rights are a human right because you're talking about their identity, their very dignity, their ability to get the health care that they need, and literally discriminate them on the basis of their sex and their gender.
You're tying a lot of things into this.
And where do they get these human rights from?
I believe it comes from human reason, but others will tell you it comes from God.
So you believe that it comes from purely your perception, basically?
Not my perception. I said human reason, not my reason.
Right. So it becomes to your perception because you have no actual way to ground that. If you don't believe it comes from God, if you believe
this is a completely different discussion, and we're in Q&A. Like, holy crap. I mean, if you want to have that discussion, we can have a debate regarding that. But yeah.
Rights are a legal term dictated by the government.
Okay, so we shouldn't have trans rights for people in Ethiopia then?
They should have the government give them rights.
But their government says they shouldn't, so...
Yeah, they don't have rights, but they should have rights.
Okay, but their government says they shouldn't. So if it comes from the government, then the government's correct, right?
I didn't say the government's correct.
So then it comes from your perception. Well, come on now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So then why don't you say that from the start? It comes from my perception. It comes
from it's also a legal term. It's also legal. Oh, you're missing the nuance yet again, Jake. Shocker. Oh my God.
Please, I can't wait. Tell me the argument.
You missed it. There's different contexts of how rights can be affirmed. There can be legal rights. There can be personal rights.
Giant debate that can literally go down a giant rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's not as simple as you think the world is, Jake. There's complicated things in the world.
Seems like you're the one who hasn't been able to grasp complicated topics tonight, Will. Unfortunately, I wish it would have been a bit more challenging.
This one from Wrongful Rage says, so 1stAmender, do we need to start issuing gender papers? Hold on, just lost the screen here. They said, that way we can verify these people's claims of gender affirmation, because that sounds shady. You're bad at this, like harmfully bad. Stop it.
It's already on your license, dude. What are you talking about?
1stAmender?
I'm so sorry. I was reading something. Can you repeat very quickly?
Let's see. They just said like, hey, should we have people have gender papers? It says that way we can verify these people's claims of gender affirmation. He says that sounds shady. Kind of like, you know, who had papers in the past. Don't say the word.
Yeah, I agree. That's very weird. Like,
but it's already on your license. We have gender on our license, so we already have the papers. No worries.
But we only have
true. Fair enough.
Our options, right?
Well, that's fine. You do. It's fine.
This one from Grimnack says, bro, 1stAmender is gonna start crying. I have to be real. I know that 1stAmender gets so much shit, but I do admire that he shows up here, even though he gets so much flack from the audience. Not all the audience, but some. And he still shows up. And I have to say that's admirable, is that most people, like for real, most people, doesn't matter which party, like they would not do that. Most people would be like, they got a taste of it once, and they're like, oh man, so many disagreed with me, so many called me soy boy, so many blah blah blah. Most people would not be willing to go come and face it.
I agree with this so much. Like,
it's
keep fighting the good fight.
I'm like an endless bound of energy. The more people hate me, the more power I get.
I I believe there's something different in you because, like I said, regardless of political party, I do think that most people, they really won't show up for that more than once. Penublet says, per constitutional, but back to roasting you. They say, per constitutional attorney Robert Barnes, if there's a fire and you yell fire to alert others, you cannot be held liable as you are alerting people to great danger. Cope and seethe, amender.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
really
I
got
mean,
done there.
sorry, one more time. I'm reading the chat hate on me.
I don't even understand their point. What are they trying to get across here?
Sorry, can you just quickly
They're
one more time? I
confused.
apologize. I get
Stop
distracted
reading
with
all
these
the hate,
chats.
First
All
Amender. You
right,
could
all right,
read
all
all
right.
the
I'm
hate
trying.
later.
All
They
right, I
say,
apologize. Go ahead.
per constitutional attorney Robert Barnes, if there's a fire and you yell fire to alert others, you cannot be held liable as you are alerting people to great danger. Cope and seethe, First Amender.
Oh, okay. So that was a misunderstanding that I had that Jake said, where I thought that it was under the assumption that there was not a fire. But yes, I agree with you. You're correct. Yes. By telling
got
people
it.
that there's a fire when there is a fire, then yeah,
This one
James, do you
coming.
think your audience is more skewed to the right, or what do you think?
they are.
I bet they are.
100% they are.
I would say lately
What-
we've definitely become more skewed to the right at modern day debate. I think largely because of a character named Andrew Wilson.
Yeah.
Because we've had Andrew on again, we've got a good relationship with Andrew again, and I think also I'm not trying to diss anybody. I think that sometimes people, some pockets of those on the far left, they see some of the messages from Andrew Wilson and they're like, I won't, I'm not even going to be here anymore. I will leave. And so they take off. Not all. First
What?
Amenders here. But I think a lot
That
of them
makes
are
sense.
like, this is bad. Chat
But they
bad.
run
I'm
away.
leaving.
That's lame.
But this one coming in from, do appreciate it. Funny Farm says, if I want to cut my arm off with body dysmorphia, affirm my decisions or you will be, quote, on the wrong side of history, First Amender.
These are a disanalogous point. You're talking about somebody who has a body dysmorphia, and that is the current medical efficacy is not to affirm that. You basically need to help them out. That requires a great deal of psychological effort. I'm not 100% super read on what the exact methods are. I'm read about the methods regarding trans people, and the current medical efficacy for treating gender dysphoria is gender affirming care. So no, they're not analogous.
And also, just quickly, James, I did send you something on Instagram that I would like you to put on the
Yeah, I
screen.
saw that.
Is it some sort of lewd photo? What is it?
No,
No,
it's
no,
not.
have a look.
It's a proof of his earlier claim that was in doubt.
Okay. Okay.
Can't share your
Okay.
I'd
screen?
appreciate
Then
it
I'll
if
look.
you
Okay.
if you could share the screen.
This one, well, I can't. It's not easy for me because I can't log into my on my work computer
Basically, I can
but
just verify it. It's proof that he's a lord.
I believe
I'll
that he's
post it on
Lord.
Twitter. Jake Rattle SNK. I'll post the photo on Twitter for those of you who are confused.
You got it. I also, last question, not the last one. We've got a number of questions yet. This one, wrongful rage says, what right is being imperiled free speech or delusional nature of individuals' confusion? I would err on the side of free speech. Do we stop children from talking to invisible friends or do we allow it?
The answer is that it is not a delusion because we're referring to the difference between sex and gender and how you can exhibit specific differences in gender that can be shown at an empirical level. This is shown endocrinologically, and it also can be shown neurochemically as well as neurobiologically, right? There's multiple fields of study that came to the same conclusion that sex is not equal to gender. Right. So it is not a delusion. It is not make believe. It has basis in the hormonal chemistry of the human body.
This one from Tina L says, question for each. Will you, in one sentence, define hate speech? Well, yeah, I suppose we'll give each person a chance to define hate speech with just one sentence.
Sure, I can go. Hate speech is speech that is intended to cause harm to a specific person. That's probably it would be. Yeah, I would be more specific. Sorry. It would be hate speech is speech that's intended to cause harm based on something similar to race, gender, ethnicity, and things that are similar to that. There we go.
You got it.
Yes, speech that comes from a place of hate.
What a shocker! Their definitions are way oversimplified, especially Jake's. The real
gave us
better
one
definition.
sentence, to be fair.
Alex, you did good, not Jake though.
You just lost the debate.
My
the whole night,
definition
so
is
you can
any
insert
kind of
that, but-
communication. Let me speak, Jake. Let me speak. Hold on
If
for
you
a
made any good
second.
points
Have
tonight, then maybe that would
self-control
make
over your
sense.
body for a second, Jake. Okay. Any kind of communication in speech, writing, or behavior that attacks or uses pejorative, disapproval, or discriminatory language with reference to a person or a group on the basis of who they are. In other words, based on their religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, or other identifying factor. Thank you.
Wow, you said a lot of words, Will. So
I
that
thought you were
must
done,
make yours
Jake. I
true.
thought you were
That
done.
must make
I
yours
thought you
true
were
because you said a lot
done.
of different
First
words.
Amender.
That what you
First
think
Amender.
If
means
you're
I'm
being
right?
abusive or threatening speech with the express intent of prejudice of on the basis of your race, religion, sexual orientation, or any grounds that are things that you can't control. Yeah.
Yeah, Jake is afraid of nuance.
This one, they also asked, there's a man in an abusive relationship and he's made to change to a woman. So let's say Alex is in a relationship. He's got a girlfriend. And let's say his girlfriend was abusing him and says, like, Alex, you have to turn into Alexandra, or I will abuse you if you don't. They say, which pronouns cause less harm? Call him Robin, a female name, or Chase, a male name.
But this girlfriend's a monster. Leave.
This is
Like
a
what?
very
You just
Yeah,
leave. You leave.
scenario.
Like what? Well,
This
you're
doesn't-
forcing
this doesn't
somebody
really
to change
happen.
their gender? No, absolutely not.
Doesn't really happen when you date like Latinas. They don't really. They want masculine guys. So
Not yet. But let's say,
Yeah,
Alex,
just
that
wait.
it did
You're
happen.
forcing someone to change their gender. You just
wait,
leave.
Alex.
yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't.
But let's say Alex kind of goes along with it. He's kind of afraid of the abuse, so he's like, okay, I'm just going to embrace Alexandra.
Okay, let's make me a fucking
Why are we
pussy in this
break-
analogy. Yeah.
Oh
I
man.
mean, call an abuse hotline. Like I don't like. Yeah, this is abusive. It's just abuse.
I'll
What
put
if
my
he, like,
hoe
really
in
believes it?
her
Like, he's
place.
like-
I'll give her the you know, just kind
I'll
He was
come
like-
and
he was
give Alex a
persuaded
simp
into it.
intervention.
I would
He's
ask
like-
Alex what he wants me to call him. How about that?
So,
I would respect his identity.
My girlfriend.
wow. First Amender, First Amender, any thoughts?
On this analogy, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of like figure out this analogy without thinking about a realistic scenario. Understanding, I guess, playing within the ridiculous analogy. I mean, Jesus, is this like an Amazon woman? You can't beat her up either. You can't do anything. You're just supposed to.
My girlfriend's 5 feet. 5 feet. I can beat her up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's too far fetched for me to like imagine an answer. I guess.
You could be a
Someone's gonna
stocky
clip
5
that.
feet.
All right.
What,
Bree
beat her up?
says,
Beat
my
up.
girlfriend's 5 foot. I can beat her up. This is gonna get clipped.
Is he
Bree
lying?
says-
Oh, she really is 5 feet.
yeah, exactly.
Says,
So-
spit that fire, Jake. Will is coping hard. This one
That's
from
so
Alan Hatt.
messed up.
They say respect seems to be a one-way street to the left. Why is that?
Does it mean that the left is more respectful or less respectful?
No, it means they ask for respect, but they don't give it.
I think some people on the left absolutely are guilty of that, but not all people on the left.
This from you guys want to respond? You can.
I mean, I think we're trying to respect them. Just, First Amendment said this before. Should we be tolerant of intolerance? How far are we going to bring that? Right? You know, there's a limit, and
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just intensely intolerant to intolerant people. I don't think you can have a tolerant society if you tolerate the intolerant, because what happens is that the intolerant take over, and then there's no tolerant people remaining, a la modern day debate chat.
And I'm
This one.
I
Stop reading
actually
that
You
chat.
chase away the tolerant people.
Don't
All you're
read
left
the
with
chat.
is a bunch of fucking horrible right-wing chuds breaching their fucking intolerance, and then all you end up with is a bunch of intolerant people. Yeah, that's what happens.
How do you not see
Yes.
how like,
Fogel,
your
don't read
role
the chat.
in this how you contribute to this dynamic, how by becoming overly
No, I'm here to
vocal,
fight back. I'm here to fight back.
but you're only causing more people to disagree with you.
I don't care. I don't care. I will literally.
You don't care about
I'm so tired of being the polite Democrat that's just going to be there and be like, oh well,
You don't
let's
have to
hear
be
the other
polite.
side. Literally, dude. The argument is there's two arguments. One wants to argue in basis of human rights, and the other one wants to put brown and trans people in a blender. Like, no,
No
we're
one
not on
wants
the
to do
same.
that.
We're not
Neither
on the
me
same
nor
level.
Jake.
We're not.
Neither me
We
nor
never
Jake want to
were.
put anyone
Right?
in a
We
blender.
argue basic human
Who are
rights.
these
Dude,
people
this
that
is
want to put people in a
ridiculous.
blender? Like, you're just straw manning the other side completely.
What? Yeah, obviously it's not literally a blender. It's called
It's not
hyperbole.
even close
Yeah,
to that.
it's called
It's not
hyperbole.
even accurate
But
hyperbole.
what is
That's
true,
not
right?
what's
What is
happening.
empirically verified is the fact that they are denying medical care on basis of being trans. By the way,
No one said
completely
that at all
unconstitutional
on this
because that is
panel.
their sex, right? We are literally
or Jake said
we are
that.
literally pushing them out of spaces. They can't be in basic public spaces without getting harassed day in and day out, and it's horrendous. Y'all, everybody who's anti-trans, it's fucking horrendous.
Neither
You
me
guys
nor
are
Jake
gross.
said
You
anything
guys
about
get up in the
denying
morning, you're
anyone
like,
care.
man, I want to be a hateful piece of shit in the morning, and then you would go do that. It's disgusting. I hate it,
Your
and I hate pretending that
miscategorization
we're on the
is on
same
the
that we're on the same level. We're
You're
not.
ignorant. This is just your
I have a
ignorance.
theory that I think that 1stAmender is just trying to get some pussy, honestly, and that this is why he gets so irate about all of this
What
sort
the
of
fuck
stuff.
are you
because
talking about?
that's just my theory.
That has
1stAmender. I think
nothing to
that's-
do with
I
anything.
think that that's what it comes down
I
to.
never
because I
said
don't think that
anything
you're
saying,
actually angry
oh,
about
if there's any girls that like me, maybe you
And me and
hit me
Jake
up.
didn't say
No,
anything about
I
denying
never
healthcare
said
to
anything
anyone.
like
First
that.
Amendment.
But what
First
I
Amendment.
did say
Stop
is that you're
falling
invoking
into
basic
the-
human rights. I hate it.
Stop
I hate
falling-
it. I hate pretending that you're on the same
Oh my
fucking
God.
level. You're not.
I know.
Stop.
Will.
Someone will
falling
touch
into
Will,
someone will
that
touch a
trap,
PP one day,
dude.
1stAmender. Don't worry. Someone will touch a PP.
You are falling into the trap every time, First Amender. You gotta hold yourself. Right?
This one coming in from Stupid Not Funny says, talking about hate speech, first offender. Here's the one who has talked about hating people and wanting to physically harm someone all over words and his fifis. Get a grip, soy boy. You are so
All right.
bent.
Yeah, let's try it one more time, okay? That wasn't a physical threat. Obviously, I don't want to literally rip their head off, right? So let me just figure it out so you can get your little 80 IQ brain around it, right? That you can actually realize that I'm just offering some hyperbole there. Obviously, I don't physically want to rip their head off. Jesus.
This one from Terrell Simmons says, can Alex please get closer to his camera? And Chase Hogarth says, for Fogel, should I pretend the homeless schizo ramblings I hear in inner cities are true because denying them would cause internal harm?
Because, well, this is also not analogous because you're talking about internal harm as opposed to external harm. Somebody harming themselves because of not affirming their gender is an external harm. If I take you at good faith and just replace the internal with external, then kinda, yeah. Like if you're like not affirming that homeless person and it causes them to like harm themselves and you know it harms themselves, then you should try to do what you can to avoid that. Sure.
People do it with Alzheimer's. People do it to people with Alzheimer's. They just affirm it and let it go because to disagree can cause more harm and doesn't benefit anybody.
This one coming in from appreciate it. All four of these people are basically just throwing their poop at First Amender, but I'm going to read it. Marcus Antonio says, first offender loves talking about himself. Funny Farm says, today's takeaways, leftists love control, not rights. You guys want to respond to that one?
Yeah, there's different type of leftists. There's economic leftists. There's social leftists. There's SJWs. There's just people. Every party wants control. I think the right is better at it, unfortunately. But yeah.
I used to be I used to be a libertarian. Before that I was a Republican. I've switched to a Democrat because I kept reading. That's literally what it was. I just kept on reading and then realized that the empirical science is in favor of trans people and gender being different from sex. And then I became immediately disgusted by how many people that are super anti-trans. Just like I feel it's almost as if like basically the equivalent, at least from my mind, is like if we had an argument regarding like black people and whether or not that they deserve to be using the same water fountain as white people and whether or not that it's racist to say so. It's actually at that level in my head.
Well, in your head, but not in reality.
Well, I do believe that in reality, it will be realized within the next 20 or 30 years or so.
Well, go to Harlem, if you will, First Amender, and go and compare them to trans people and see how well that goes for you. Compare their struggle to trans people.
But
see how well that
I'm
goes
saying
for you.
it wasn't about water fountains then, and it's not about bathrooms now. It's the same exact
Robin
problem.
Webster says, good people care about others. Some are not good. This one from Dr. Tetanus says, are the chuds in the room with you right now, First Amender? And the poor man's poet 33 says, you have to speak the way I want. If you don't, we'll take your job, publicly shame you, and in some countries jail you. The tolerant left.
I don't believe in creating laws that prevent you from being able to speak. I mean, I do take my name seriously, but just so you're aware, right, a company is not beholden to the First Amendment. The First Amendment, it covers a lot of things. It covers the separation of church and state. It covers the right of free speech. Obviously, I don't believe that there should be a law that prevents you from saying hateful things. But I also don't think that you're like free of consequence just because you're like being a piece of garbage. If you're a piece of garbage, I think people should call you out for being a piece of garbage. Like,
let me
that's
comment
it.
on that.
And so me doing that, that's what I'm doing.
Let me comment on this. So no one here is a freedom of speech absolutist. That whole comment was it's just a way to try to appeal to certain people, but no one is a freedom of speech absolutist. Everyone here would advocate for some kind of limitation of speech in some form. There's no one here believes that in genuine faith.
That is true.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it. 2 seconds as this loads here. Nick Mercer says, for the cause. Thanks, Nick, very much. And this one from Dr. Tetanus says, the chuds are back in town. Okay. Even Laura says, chud bros, we can't stop winning. Lefties, big, sad. First Amender, are you sad?
No, I'm angry.
Okay. This one from Kevin Blackwell. Thanks for your generous super chat. Says, how does First Amender know that the changes in the brain aren't the same as cancer or a parasite and something that should be fixed? Cancer is real and physical, just like your trans brains. Can he show the paper
Because
that
it's
proves it isn't a disease?
because it's not a cancerous tumor, and there are differences in the way the human body grows at an embryonic stage that can differ quite radically based on the hormones you receive at a very early age. It just happens. Genetics are weird. They do weird stuff sometimes, and this is just an exhibit of a weird thing that happens.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Know Your Realm says leprechaun. Raw Dog says, what makes you an Irishman, First Amender?
Leprechaun? Like, I have an argument regarding the disproving God with the usage of leprechauns, but I don't know what that is.
Raw Dog says, what makes your feelings more important than mine? It hurts me to lie.
And don't lie. Use gender neutral pronouns.
Correct. Yeah, if you feel like you're lying, use gender neutral. It's easy. It's not hard.
Poor man's poet says, is First Amender trans? Is he voice modding after my lucky charms? First Amender
no, I'm not
born male. This has come up before. And
yeah, I'm not. I'm bisexual, but I don't know why that has anything to do with anything.
This one from Witsit Gets It says, if someone is schizophrenic, do you agree enabling their delusion would actually be cruel? Stating uncomfortable truth is an act of love, not hate.
So I don't believe that you're telling the truth by not affirming someone's gender, because I'm referring to the difference between gender and sex. If you can understand that gender is different from sex, then you're not lying.
This one
it's not cruel.
Car Camp says, McHayton versus Jake, not one step back, brother, not one. So some sort of slang the young people use nowadays. This one from
You're not cool enough,
Rage.
James, to understand. It's something that all the kids are using.
I'm a boomer here. Wrongful Rage says, Alex, did you do something that invokes our praise? Oh, I think they think you were playing the middle too much, Alex. They're like, I'm Alex. Oh, I voted for
Wait,
Biden. I'm a lefty. I think they're criticizing you for that.
yeah.
Alex
So
is a
that's what
Soviet
right-wing chuds
communist and
do.
he's
They
a
like to
spy.
they
I-
like to harass people that don't agree with them even slightly, and they're literally like a bee swarm that will literally engulf you, Alex, because
I don't
you're
really feel-
slightly agreeing with Will and I.
I
And
don't
you're
really
being
feel-
like, how dare you be even remotely reasonable? You have to be a right-wing chud like them, bunch of fucking NPCs.
Yeah, I don't feel harassed. I don't really give a shit. Yeah, if you like my arguments, cool. If not, then whatever. This is not really a topic I've ever thought about, so it's not my strongest topic. But yeah,
I don't know why they're hard on you. I would have thought that they would be excited to have like a person who votes Democrat on their side because it's like a very persuasive, like rhetorical, credential to say, look, we've even got somebody from your side on our side.
It's because
But
he's a product of the KGB and he's a Soviet spy, and people are just suspicious of that. Most
that
of all.
must be it.
I used to be, but I've switched over to Venezuela. They're
Oh
actually
dear.
the girls are hotter. So
They are good, the Venezuelan girls.
Andy says, how do 1stAmender and Will ground their harm principle? I think they're saying
Principle.
How do I ground harm?
I mean,
they're
harm can be
saying like if
measured.
there's
It
Like
hurts.
harm can be measured
First
I feel
Amendment.
psychologically,
bad.
right?
Can we see you, not your pussy, First Amender? Thank you.
You don't like my cat? My cat's
No, I
cute.
don't wanna see your
Look,
pussy,
she's
dude.
such a
Jesus.
cutie. She's so
Harm
just
can be
a
measured
cutie. I love her.
psychologically,
I
and there
love
can
her
also
very
be
much.
plenty of other metrics that can be used to dictate what harm means.
Marcus Antonio says, 1stAmender, you can't be, quote, so tough and intolerant, then turn around and be a victim when the other side claps back. It's weak AF.
I'm not running at all. I am on Discord all the time, taking on anybody that wants to debate. I host a show on Thursdays, debate some more. I show up here, I debate some more. I ain't running, bro.
Wow. This one coming in from Dr. Tetanus says the Chud Coalition of America and Australia are going to cause 1stAmender to have a spurg-induced aneurysm. RRU. I don't know what that means. I'm glad we could help. This one from
Mm.
the Tanner Nation says 1stAmender. Which statement is more indicative to you? Quote, I feel like a man, or I have actual male reproductive organs.
Both of those are correct, but also at the same time, there are people where their external genitalia do not match. Right?
You got it.
James, how
one-
many of these do you have? You have it looks like you have a million.
Questions? Oh, I say we got
Just
10
getting
right
started.
here. 10 here in the list.
Okay.
The remaining. 10 Toes Hemerson says you can't stop the base chads. 1stAmender, we will overtake you, out debate you and out procreate you. Christ is God. Thanks for coming out, though. GG.
All right, cool. So you believe in a fake thing. You want to harass somebody who's trying to argue you the reality, and then your argument is talking about another fake thing. Got it.
Funny
Amazing.
Farm says, Amender, you, quote, hate Jake so much, unquote. Does he deserve his right to speak, or would you revoke it?
Yes,
Will?
he deserves his right to speak.
And then they say, Will, what are your thoughts?
I'll take his right to speak away. No, I'm just kidding. I think I think he's a
Sorry,
fine
I'm
lad.
fucking with you.
He's a fine lad. He's just a little lost on a couple things, but I'm willing to help him no matter what. I won't give up on you, Jake, no matter how confused you are.
I think I'm doing just fine, thanks, Will.
Oh, I see. He's confused again.
This one from Dr. Tetanus says, got that one. Nick Mercer, thanks for they said, Marco Antonio said, 1stAmender, white knights himself yet again. This one from,
I don't know what you think, like white knight or whatever. Like, I just argue for human rights and people get upset. Like, you're mad that I want to uphold basic inalienable rights of all individuals. Like, you're a monster. I don't know what, like, and then you're just like, oh, here's this label, white knight, you're a bad person now. Like, fuck you.
Juicy. Okay.
Well,
Somebody, okay, nothing? All right. This one from, pardon. I do want to remind you all, we do have several more questions, but I do want to say it early. Our guests are linked in the description box. What are you waiting for, folks? You can always find their links. Don't forget that. That's included at the podcast. As all of these debates are on the Modern Day Debate podcast within 24 hours of them being live. Hello Outsider says, 2 Timothy 4, 3-4 says, is transgenderism in a nutshell? This one from Wrongful Rage says, poor William, two of the worst partners back to back. Do you remember the 3 laws of logic, or should we lose hope in you?
Was that to Will, to me, or
To Will.
Well, it was Will, and it was meant to insult you.
got it?
Go ahead,
Do you know
William,
them, Will?
defend your partner.
Look, 1stAmender, I really, like we said before, and I'll say it again, the fact that he comes out here and advocates is the most important thing. Could he improve his methods? Maybe, but so can everyone else. I can improve mine. We can all improve on the way we do things. We should strive to improve, but the fact that he comes out at all is very admirable.
So what's the
Is
3
it-
laws of
it-
logic, Will?
Are you talking about Aristotle? Is that Aristotle?
No. Will, what are the laws of logic?
What? No, I'm almost
ex-
positive that was Aristotle.
Excluded
well-
middle, law of non-contradiction,
Yeah,
and
And then what was it? The law of
I
identity.
don't know the other one.
Ah,
Yeah, the identity. There you go.
They're
Needed
Will's
See,
laws.
this is called
not
teamwork.
Aristotle's.
This is
I mean, you
teamwork
needed
at its
your
height.
Also,
teammates to tell you the
a quiz is
Yeah,
it
'cause I
doesn't
love my
doesn't
team
really
logic.
make somebody right or wrong. You're just trying to like lambaste the point, like, oh, see, they don't know what they're talking about because you can't actually address the fact that that transgender people exist and how it's hate speech.
Yeah, it's a
Anyways,
stupid
we
red
actually
herring,
weren't talking
but
to you, 1stAmender.
Everyone knows they exist. No one's denying.
Don't care, Chud.
This one coming in from KF. Thanks for your super chat. I didn't see a question though. Emily A says, it doesn't matter what hate speech is because 1stAmender has shown that hate speech is acceptable as long as you hate them. This has been
intolerant people.
disturbing.
Yeah, I hate on intolerant people because I don't believe that you can have a working, tolerant society if you just hate all the tolerant people and then all that's left is a bunch of right-wing chuds that just hate anything that don't agree with them. Y'all are a bunch of NPCs and you're on the wrong side of history.
This one from Rachel Wilson says 1stAmender has secret king syndrome. He thinks smart boys like him should run everything. And he's mad that he will never beat guys like Jake by reading books. And he says, she says, reading books does not entitle you to a higher place in the hierarchy, 1stAmender.
I would rather have smart people running the government than like somebody who does not read and literally speaks at a 4th grade level and a bunch of right-wing chuds sit around and say, see that guy, he talk kind of like me. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'd rather have smart people actually run things.
Yeah, I'll
Quick
actually
plug.
grant that, 1stAmender, and I'll just say that I don't read so good, and I have never learned to read, and I wouldn't be able to if I tried, and I do speak like a 4-year-old. But unfortunately for you, 1stAmender, you just got absolutely demolished by that guy for 2.5 hours. So I think it says more about you, buddy.
Okay, Snake.
Oh, good one.
This one's coming
Okay.
in. Sleepy Neo. Oh, that reminds me though, Rachel Wilson, thanks very much. Rachel will be at DebateCon 5 this weekend. So if you want to meet both Rachel and, you can see on the bottom right of the screen there, Andrew Wilson takes on Craig McNeil. That's in Newark, New Jersey this weekend. Get your tickets linked in the description box. What are you waiting for? This one from Sleepy Neo says, 1stAmender, can men PMS? I'm asking for a friend.
Can men PMS? No.
Interesting. Tapio says, 1stAmender, just drop the charade already and admit you love porn. That's what this is all about, right?
Love what?
No.
I think they're saying transgender, explicit
No, I just
materials,
sympathize
adult
with trans
films.
people because I realize that most people like to revoke the human identity of trans people. I'm very staunchly in favor of basic and inalienable rights, and that's why I'm very, very passionate about this. That's why I sat down and I read and learned about all these things. Yes.
This one, Tanner Nation says, my question got skipped. Tanner, I'm 100% sure that I read it earlier. Tapio says, 1stAmender, just dropped the charade already. And you must have been going to the bathroom. Tapio says, oh, yeah. Tech VR says, what was the gross soda brand that we got you to try in like 8 subs for 1stAmender?
Yeah. So I have this contest that I'm doing. Basically, if I get to 400 subs, I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but I got to start somewhere. And when I get to 400 subs, I'm going to be streaming a thing where I'm drinking a bunch of really gross sodas by this company called Lester's Fixins, or I call it Uncle Lester's Soda. Anyway, they're really freaking gross. He's got like a buffalo wing soda. There's like a mustard soda. There's a ranch dressing, black olive soda. And anyway, so I'm going to be doing that because it does look like we're going to be meeting our goal.
You got it. This one coming in. Do appreciate it. Tina L says, this was a real world example, believe it or not. Domestic abuse, you just walk away. But misgendering and hate speech is harassment. Get the problem?
I'm sorry. One more time. I was looking at chat. I promised that I wouldn't do
So
this.
you remember earlier, they said if, let's say, Alex, his girlfriend was verbally abusive toward him until she got him to buy into the ideology and think that he was a woman trapped in a man's body,
Okay.
so that Alex becomes Alexandra. They're saying,
Okay.
remember that? They say domestic abuse, you just walk away, but misgendering and hate speech is harassment. Get the problem?
Well,
I think
both
maybe
of
they're
these are
saying
terrible situations. Like, I don't know, like I wouldn't want either of these things to happen. So
You should
I
think
don't
walk
they're
away
see
from
the
your partner too if
problem.
they misgender you. How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
I think
Should
they're
walk away.
saying
Both.
like I think they're kind of saying like, well, why wouldn't you affirm Alexandra? Call like say like, yes, you are Alexandra. Like, why would it matter if the source from which
Why does this
Alexandra
fucking
started thinking
analogy
it?
have to involve me? I don't understand.
This
Sorry,
is all about Alex.
it's like it's a sign of endearment, Alex. I love you,
Yeah, no,
Alex.
it's just
Okay,
weird.
So lucky to
I
be
think they're
chosen, Alex.
saying, shouldn't you like support that trans person in either case? Like, it shouldn't matter if it was the result of her like abuse leading up to it. I don't know if that's what they're trying to get at. It's hard to tell.
Mhm.
Derek says, Derek Stallwood says, 1stAmender mentioned the empirical science of trans people. Empirical science led to eugenics. 1stAmender. Does his moral worldview rest on empirical science?
Yes. So sometimes science can be wrong, but what's good about science is that it changes its opinion or its findings based on new evidence. Yes, I agree with you that there has been bunk science for that. I do not believe that that is the case for trans people because there's more and more discoveries that are being made in favor of the trans experience.
This one coming in from Sweet Chris O'Mine says, what exactly makes an identity, quote, a gendered one if it's just a subjective view of yourself? How is atheist Christian not a gender under this view?
That's a
You're talking about like a worldview as opposed to like someone's identity.
well, it's someone's perception of what they think gender means. If they think gender means one thing, then it's hard to disagree because it's your own subjective opinion about yourself. You can't prove them wrong, right? Because it's their own opinion. You can't prove that I like the color red, just like you can't prove that I think I am a woman. Can't
Yeah, I
prove
mean,
it.
you just kind of have like you're talking about a person's phenomenology or their internal experience or qualia for short. It's not really possible to get that without just asking.
You got it. This one from blah 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 1196. Will and 1stAmender. If you internally identify as a woman, but I externally identify you as a man, why does your internal subjectivity prioritize over my external subjectivity or vice versa?
Oh, it doesn't. So typically how you determine somebody to be man or woman is that you exhibit a series of characteristics that determine that are typical of that of male or female. So like you observe these things like their face, their body type, you observe like the fat distribution, all of these within about like less than half a second, and then you make that assumption from there. If then somebody told you, well, my gender is that of this, and then you perpetuate just being a hateful person, then yeah, you're just kind of being a dick. Like, yeah.
So I would also agree with most of what 1stAmender say. It doesn't, what was it? It doesn't out compete, or what was the word that was
Yeah,
used?
it doesn't like, yeah, there's no like competition there.
Yeah, it's not
just,
a competition of who, it's just how do we respect each other? That's the
Yeah.
question. How should we communicate to each other that conveys respect both ways? If I ask that you affirm my gender, that was in telling you that's how I would perceive you to respect me. If you don't want to affirm my gender, that's your choice. And if you want to, give me a little bit of respect, but not lie to yourself, you don't have to affirm my gender, and you don't have to use gendered language at all. Just use my name. It's that easy.
This one from Marcus Antonio says, 1stAmender, didn't say you run, you said you play victim. I don't understand what this is.
I play victim.
Oh, they're saying didn't say you run. I said you play victim.
I'm not I don't consider myself a victim.
Mark says, Jake Rattlesnake is good looking, smart, tough, and measured. I hate him, but not really though. Love you also, Jake, from Melbourne. Wow.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Eleazar Perez says, first offender, if an underage girl said she was into you and she would off herself, you know what I mean? Like,
oh my God.
But I talked to the police. I talked to the parents, to the psychologist. Like, what?
Let me explain this twisted example. They say, if you didn't get with her, would you catch your first offense to save her?
No, I'm talking to the parents immediately.
This is a messed up trolley problem. But what if you couldn't talk to the parents? What if you couldn't?
What? I'm leaving. I'm running. Nope.
You're abandoning the trolley problem?
Yep, I'm leaving.
Run over the girl?
Whatever happens, happens. That ain't my responsibility.
Nature tickets course? Damn.
Okay. This one coming in from Eleazar Perez, his first offender. We got that one. Raw Dog says, so gender neutral is plural pronouns. Is this because they have multiple genders in their mind? Hashtag malord.
No, it's just a filler word that, because we don't have better language.
Hello Outsider says, if men can't PMS, then trans men aren't men.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was going to disagree with you, 1stAmender. I would argue a trans man could PMS because men is an identity.
Oh,
and that doesn't have to match.
I thought they said just men. Okay, I see what you're saying. No, yeah. you're right. You're right.
A man can PMS because a man can be a trans man.
Gotcha. Yeah. I guess I was assuming they were referring to the sex man, not gender.
I would call it male.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Rachel Wilson says, Jake is smarter than the angry man. He just thinks he's smarter because he reads books. Well, I write books. Am I smarter? You don't care about human rights. You want revenge on more successful people. First offender.
So I do care about human rights. I've started like my political journey, like as a Republican, switched to a libertarian because I was so staunchly in favor of people's basic inalienable rights. After reading John Locke, I was like, dude, this guy, huge, right? I read Rothbard, I read Mises, I read Ayn Rand. I mean, I was neck deep in it. And even to this day, like even now as a Democrat, very much in favor of basic human rights. I read a book called Brain Gender by Melissa Hines. And then I realized that there was a lot more scientific basis to trans people than everybody realizes. I was like, this can be exhibited in multiple fields of study. And I just see a lot of people that want to revoke the basic rights of trans people. And it's incredibly upsetting.
You're a libertarian, 1stAmender?
No, I'm a Democrat.
This one.
I used to be, though.
Nolan Richards 1 says, 1stAmender, you cite brain sex differences to affirm gender exists, yet say they don't define their self-identity. How do you reconcile that?
You cite brain sex differences. Sorry, one more. I'm trying to make sure I get the question right.
You cite brain sex differences to affirm gender exists, yet
Yes.
you say they don't, those differences don't define their self-identity. How do you reconcile this?
Well, because you're talking about a complex phenomenon, a person's gender, and the only way that you can really fully 100% tell is that it's their internal sense of how they feel. Obviously, we have to take them a bit at their word because you're looking into the phenomenology of that individual. We can look at telltale markers that are typical of that for trans people and exhibit the biological differences that are exhibited of people who feel that they are trans, and they're just that just shows that there's a hormonal and a neurochemical link behind the phenomenological response. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just
maybe that went over everybody's head. I don't know.
Nolan Richards. Yes, they're like, if it doesn't make sense to you folks, then you're not as smart as 1stAmender. All right,
Yeah, like
Word
Nolan
salad.
Richards.
It was a word salad, is what it was.
Nolan
It
Richards
wasn't word
won.
salad. It made
It
perfect
was
sense.
it was a word salad.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
didn't
When you
make
have
any
big
sense.
words, it doesn't mean that it's word salad, right? It just
No,
means
it was
there's big words that require
No,
you
what
to
you're
like
doing
think a
is
little more.
you're intentionally obfuscating something, and you've been absolutely
I'm
repping
not
this about 5 times
obfuscating.
already tonight.
I literally defined phenomenology to you clearly, qualia or internal sense experience. You
Let me
can
give it to
follow
you for
along
the-
from there.
If you don't understand, let me give it to you for the dumb people in the comments, okay? So what he's saying is that there are all of these other factors that go into gender expression and go into gender. However, what it ultimately comes down to is how you feel and how you self-identify.
That's
So
not
if
true.
you have all of the other factors, but you still feel as though you are something that is it not attributed
That's
to those
not
factors,
true.
you are still not that thing. So
Yeah, that's a straw
completely
man of the
logical,
argument.
incoherent.
I'm just simply pointing out that, hey, there's all these people that say they feel like that their gender is different from their sex. What is going on? Okay, let's study them. Can we observe that there are physical differences in comparison to cis people? The answer is yes, among many different fields of study. The neurobiology, the endocrinology, the neurochemistry, as well as the biology, all of these show these exhibited traits. Okay,
This one
so
from
that's what I'm referring to.
Chenublet says, no, Amender, science does nothing, says nothing, and interprets nothing. Humans do. Science cannot say anything is wrong.
Science, yeah, science disproves things all the time. What do you mean? Of course it
He's
means
saying
things.
morally wrong. Science can't say anything is morally wrong.
That's
what he's saying.
correct. You cannot derive an is from a not, but I mean, I can
It's referring
talk
back to
about
the
like,
the eugenics argument that they were talking about.
gotcha. I apologize. I'm sorry. It's late. I'm tired.
Tim Jibling says gender is ternary, right?
Gender is 3 things.
Tertiary.
I'm assuming that they're referring to my initial thing where I said it's male, female, and non-binary.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I exhibit. I mean, I don't know. I have heard like entirely social constructs where it goes outside of the bimodal distribution, but yeah.
That's
This
what I
one.
would say. I think it's a spectrum that can have more than just male or female.
Hey F says 1stAmender. Science
Can we
doesn't
just
have an
have
opinion.
James? Can you do me a favor? Can you just like change it to 1stAmender? Just say 1stAmender instead of first offender every time. Like
Actually,
Jesus,
I've been changing it from.
I have committed no crimes. Right?
I've been
I
changing
have
it
committed
from.
not a single crime, and it's like they're just like throwing me in the bus, saying like, oh, I'm an offender, like a what, like a sex offender, or like I don't understand.
That was
It's
projection.
actually, I was already changing it. They were saying 1stAmender, and I was changing it to 1stAmender. I'm sorry.
Are you serious?
Not all of them. Some
Why
of
do you
them.
do this, James?
But
Don't
here,
do this
James
to
is
me.
savage, man.
All right,
It
go ahead.
just
Just
makes
please.
it more fun. All right, listen.
No,
He's
no,
not a
You're-
pervert. He's not. Listen, look at Alex. He's doing something over there. I don't know what's going on. Oh,
He
you're
can't
on
speak.
mute.
You've muted him.
Okay, sorry.
I think you can unmute yourself, no?
No, you can't.
Really?
Yeah, I was just muted for like a solid 15 minutes, but yeah, go ahead.
First Amender. He's not a pervert, you guys. Says, Heck VR, Jake, you do realize Established Titles is owned by a Chinese corporation. Oh, we got that one. They also said, Wicked Whittle Wally says, Jake, I repent of my lack of faith in your fine nation. I seek the king's forgiveness and declare myself an Australia Inquirer. Oh, yeah, that's
You
right.
have been forgiven.
This one coming in from Tim Jipping says, Jake, gotta yell fire when you see a flame. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
What does that mean?
Well, it means if you see a fire in a crowded theater, you probably shouldn't not say fire because you're scared that you'll be culpable for people being killed in a stampede.
I misunderstood your position. This was under the assumption that there was no fire. And I've clarified it multiple times, and now you're doubling down. It's so weird.
That's pretty interesting. Okay. Now, our dear friend First Amender has gotten most of the shit tonight. William, I tried to give you some, but there's just not that much to work with. Only joined to troll says, how can you say trans women are literally women while simultaneously admitting that gender is literally just an identity or feeling?
Yeah, I mean, if you understand the difference between gender and sex, then this question doesn't really work,
The
right?
question
'Cause-
didn't make sense.
yeah.
Like, that's the whole point. It is a feeling, so you are a woman if you feel like you're a woman because it's a identity.
But we're referring to
subjective
the
identity.
gender, right? Not the sex. The sex never changes. Right?
Precise.
It's
Well,
the
you
same.
can change your sex too. So anatomical sex changes. You can change aspects of your sex. Maybe you can't change your chromosomes yet.
Yeah.
Keyword.
I don't think we would ever be able to be fair, but yeah.
One day.
From Andy, they say some say using quote unquote wrong pronouns causes psychological harm. But how do you determine what truly counts as harm rather than just discomfort or disagreement? Your quote unquote harm principle is just circular.
So it's not a matter of disagreement. You're disagreeing about their very identity. And it literally causes their gender dysphoria to get worse by being surrounded by tons of hateful people that say hateful things and don't affirm their identity. This increases their overall suicidal ideation. This empirically reduces their quality of living, their right to life, their liberty, their pursuit of happiness. Many different inalienable rights get revoked by doing this.
You got it. This one from Retro Reister Gaming says, First Amender, Jesus loves you. He can help you with your anger. Turn to him. He's the truth, the way, and the life.
Yeah, there is no God. There's no Jesus. There's none of these things. None of this exists. It's just, yeah, it's nonsense. It's literally if I told you turn to a leprechaun.
Only joined to troll says, how can you say, oh, I just read this? They say, how can you say trans women are literally women while simultaneously admitting that gender is literally just...
you read that.
All right, sorry. For Rachel Wilson says, first offender. Okay, I have to read it if she says it.
She paid the money.
Thanks. Great.
They said, have you had intimacy with a trans person? Did it affect your perspective on the topic?
I've not had intimacy with a trans person. I don't look up any trans porn. I really genuinely am very big on human rights, right? And I see that there's a lot of hatred towards trans people, and seeing all of the hatred, they're revoking the basic right of their lives. So I fight against that vehemently.
Michael Dresden, thanks for your question. William, would you have relations with a trans person? Listen, you're
Was that
married,
a question for
William.
Will?
Are you married, right?
I am married.
So you're off the hook.
I guess I can't answer. Sorry.
It could be a threesome.
Well,
okay, let's go to the next one. I never thought it could be worse, but here we go. Alex found a way. Chance Johnson says, if you quote unquote feel like a woman, that would just be make believe. When I was a kid, I felt like a fireman a lot, but I'm not. So you can't just say you are something because you quote unquote feel like it.
Yeah,
this is just confusing. It's just confusing sex and gender. That's all.
Yeah, fireman is not a gender identity. and I've exhibited the empirical basis that exists of trans people.
Mitch Greer, I think this is their last one. They say, question for the panel. Do you support HRT for children under the age of 18? Hormone replacement therapy, if anybody forgot. Does your answer change if the child consents and the family doctors support it?
No, I don't support it for anyone under 18. After you're 18, you can do whatever the fuck you want with your own body.
HRT is not recommended to minors, only in very, very specific circumstances. I think what you're probably referring to is hormone blockers. So that way they can become 18 as a sexually androgynous person and then make an informed decision as an adult. That's typically what happens. Yeah, I mean, it's not recommended hormone replacement therapy because it leads to irreversible results. You really need to be 100% sure before you go on HRT. And so hormone blockers is probably what you're referring to. This actually reduces the need for needless surgeries in the future, because if they do end up actually feeling that they're a man or woman's body as an adult, then they don't necessarily need like things like mastectomies or, you know, or fat displacements. Surgeries, which are often very invasive and risky. And so this can be mitigated through hormone blockers. Yeah.
You got it. Want to say, folks, all of our guests are linked to the description. They're the lifeblood of this channel. They really, obviously I'm not just saying that because these channels just, like this debate wouldn't exist if they weren't here tonight. It doesn't have to end here. You guys have obviously enjoyed it. We've had a lot of people watching tonight for a long time. Great opportunity. Click on their links below. Learn more about their views, even if you disagree with their views. By the way, people are always like, oh, debate. I don't know if they really change minds. First of all, there's actually empirical research that has found that yes, they do. But even if they didn't, there's such a value in debate because you have this thing called education. Like you at least learn about the other side's position, and that's good in and of itself. But I do want to say thank you to our guests, William, 1stAmender, Jake, and Alex. It's been a true pleasure to get to host you guys tonight.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it,
James.
guys.
Thank you.
Not going to take any of this personally. Appreciate you guys all coming out tonight.
Yep. Thanks.
Take it easy, guys.
Excellent. I'll be back in just a moment, folks, to let you know about upcoming debates, including Newark, New Jersey this weekend. Tickets are linked below. Stick around and I'll share more about that in just 10 seconds. Newark, New Jersey is where Modern Day Debate's next debate conference, DEBATECON 5, is happening, including debates like Dr. Lawrence Krauss against inspiring philosophy Mike Jones on Saturday, February 15th, and Andrew Wilson against atheist Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and apostate prophet. So click below to grab your tickets right now, as some ticket types have already sold out. You don't want to miss out on this cultural moment that's starting Saturday, February 15th in Newark, New Jersey, with 2 full days of debates. So click below to grab your tickets right now so you don't miss out. Newark, New Jersey is where Modern Day Debate's next debate conference, DEBATECON 5, is happening, including debates like Dr. Lawrence Krauss against inspiring philosophy Mike Jones on Saturday, February 15th, and Andrew Wilson against atheist Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and apostate prophet. Amazing. Thank you guys for your support. Want to say, oh, that's right. Let me just reopen the old Zoom window here. You guys might be wondering, what's that thermometer on the far right of the screen? Well, as you can see, that little pink line that leads to the thermometer says only 4 days left. There are only 4 days left for the Modern Day Debate crowdfund. In other words, DebateCon, which is our conference this coming weekend, it has a crowdfund where basically we raise funds for that big event. And we basically say, hey, folks, if you'd like to help us cover the costs of the event, this is how you can do it from afar. So even if you're like, hey, I can't buy a ticket, but it's a cool event, I'm happy to help support it, is you can do that by supporting the crowdfund. So as you can see right over here, see this? I'm pointing to it. You can see Craig McNeil and Andrew Wilson will face off this weekend on secular humanist ethics versus Christian ethics. Which is better for society? It's going to be a huge debate. That's going to be on Saturday. Then Andrew Wilson will also be debating on Sunday. You don't want to miss this event. A couple of reasons why. One, not only is Andrew Wilson going to be there, but his wife, Rachel Wilson, friend of Modern Day Debate as well, will be there. So you can meet Rachel as well. Also, Jake from Rattlesnake TV, who was just on tonight debating, will also be there. You can meet Jake. He'll be walking around. And I got to tell you this. We are so excited about this conference. We have so far sold more tickets for this conference than any conference in the past. And that's awesome because we still have about 4 days to sell tickets. So when I say more than any in the past, I mean more than double in any conference in the past. Huge, just gigantic. This is going to be a huge hit. It's going to be in Newark, New Jersey this Saturday and Sunday. You have to come. And as I said, there are these debates. For example, you see Andrew versus Craig there over here on this side. And that thermometer on the far right is how much we've raised for the crowdfund, as that helps us cover costs. $2,000 is actually like enough to cover. I think that's enough to cover the venue room for Saturday. So that's it. It doesn't cover. So it's a small piece, but it really does help. We've met our goal. You can still give to the crowdfund and support it. And it has cool perks. So check out that Indiegogo link in the description box because you can get cool perks like, for example, a signed photo of Andrew Wilson or a signed photo of Alex Stein. Red Demonic says, where do I buy a ticket? It's linked in the description box. So it is right now in the description box for this stream. You can get those tickets. Also, if you're like, well, where is the crowdfund? That's linked in the description box too. So check it out. You can get a signed photo of your favorite speaker. You can get an emblem page that is signed by all of the people. And then Red Demonic says, I don't understand where I'm supposed to buy a ticket. That's linked in the description box. Again, I'm not sure if you're a let's see, let's pulling my leg. But yeah, long story short, it is linked. So the description box, like under in YouTube, there's a description under each video where you can like see links and stuff that talk about the video, and that's where you'll find the link. So I want to encourage you, once you click on that link, you'll have to scroll down to where it says register. And if you click that button, that'll show you the ticket types that are still available. So this is going to be a huge conference. We are thrilled about it. Not only that, but the Indiegogo, as I mentioned, is in the description box. So if you throw your support into this crowdfund, that helps us cover things like the speaker's flights, the speaker's hotel rooms, all that stuff. It means more than you know. We appreciate that. We usually break even for these conferences. That's what I'm expecting for this conference. But we appreciate, and that's exactly why we appreciate your support through the crowdfund, is it helps us cover our costs when it's really expensive. And you might be wondering, it's like, James, well, why would you do this? Because this is, I'm not joking. It's like a full-time job the last month on top of my normal work that I do teaching. There are a couple of reasons why we host these conferences. One, they are super fun. Like people actually love it. So that's epic. It is just a blast. And me and my team, we love doing it. But also it helps us build relationships to get to know people more deeply, like the speakers. And also, it does help modern day debate, even though it might not be profitable, like financially, we just break even. It nonetheless helps modern day debate from a branding perspective because it helps get our name out there. And it gives us kind of that brand prestige and credibility where it's like, hey, this one is hosting like in person debates. So it is very good for modern day debates growth across YouTube because we're not ashamed. We want to be YouTube's premier debate platform, period. Like we want to be the one where people are like, hey, if you want a fair shot, go to Dr. James at Modern Day Debate. That's our goal. We believe YouTube deserves a better class of debate channel, and we're going to give it to them. It's one that's fully neutral. We have a vision to provide a neutral platform so that everybody, Christian, Muslim, atheist, you name it, has their place where they can make their case on a level playing field. That's important to us. That's what we're doing here at Modern Day Debate. And that's why, hey, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do hit that subscribe button, as it's going to be big. This weekend, we're really excited about it. You don't want to miss out. And as I mentioned, Modern Day Debate is striving to provide a better class of debate channel that YouTube needs and that we're going to give to them. All of our debates this weekend are going to be live streamed for the public for free. No paywall. Because a lot of channels that'll host debates will say, hey, pay this much. It's behind a paywall. And we're like, no. We're giving this for free. It's a cultural moment. This conference is our biggest one yet. And by that, I mean, like I said, double the size of our next biggest one in the past. This is going to be huge. So I want to say, love you guys. Thanks for all your support. I see you there in the old chat. Peter, thanks for coming by. Derek, I see you there in the old live chat. Boom Shakalaka, thanks for coming by. Evan, happy to have you with us, as well as SDJKS, blah, 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 blah. Thank you for coming by. I Killed Earl, good to see you there. Thanks for dropping in. OJ NAFTA, thanks for coming in. Says, Dr. James, would you ever consider having Dr. David Wood versus Muhammad Hijab? Yeah, I'm open to that. But hijab's not super open to it, to be honest. It'd take a lot of persuading, and there are just a lot of people that would be like way easier to get that are still very popular. So not close to it, but hijab is like not super, in my opinion, not in my opinion, period. I don't think he's very reasonable in setting up debates. But thanks for being here. Derek Solwood, glad that you are here. Pro J 2025, happy to have you here. The Freedom House 1984, thanks for being with us. Mr. Green, thanks for being here. Ms. Mac, thanks for coming by. Hope you're doing well. Batman Inc., thanks for being a mod, and we hope you're doing well. Catherine MC, happy to have you here in the old live chat. Clock, thanks for dropping in. Happy to have you here, as well as Josh Villagomez, thanks for dropping by. See you there in the old live chat. And Travis Pratt, good to see you again. Thanks for your kind words. Also, oh yeah, thanks for being a channel member. I Killed Earl. Yeah, we had a number of new channel members tonight, so I do appreciate that support, folks. Bill Hicks, thanks for being a channel member. Nick Mercer, thanks for being a channel member. But yeah, we are excited about the future. This is just the beginning of our story. I can tell you that. Modern Day Debate is at, 207,000 subscribers? This is just the beginning of our story. We're going to look back and we're going to say, hey, wow, remember when it was that small? Because that's how big Modern Day Debate is going to be in the future. Join us while we are small, because our story is just beginning. Modern Day Debate is a cruising locomotive barreling down the tracks, and no matter how many roadblocks in our way, we are going to continue crushing them, moving forward. And by the way, speaking of smashing or crushing, well, don't smash the like button. We want to, we don't want to break it. We want to use it again. So just give it a gentle tap, hit the like button, gently on your way out, and then we can, use it again for another debate. Give it a nice little tap on your way out, and I appreciate your guys' support. Love you guys. Thanks for all of your support. I'm excited about the future. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable, and we will see you at the next debate, which is this Wednesday, made by Jim Bob, faces Redeemed Zoomer. It's going to be a big one. We'll see you then. Newark, New Jersey is where Modern Day Debate's next debate conference, DEBATECON 5, is happening, including debates like Dr. Lawrence Krauss against inspiring philosophy Mike Jones on Saturday, February 15th, and Andrew Wilson against atheist Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and apostate prophet. So click below to grab your tickets right now, as some ticket types have already sold out. You don't want to miss out on this cultural moment that's starting Saturday, February 15th in Newark, New Jersey, with 2 full days of debates. So click below to grab your tickets right now so you don't miss out. Newark, New Jersey is where Modern Day Debate's next debate conference, DEBATECON 5, is happening, including debates like Dr. Lawrence Krauss against inspiring philosophy Mike Jones on Saturday, February 15th, and Andrew Wilson against atheist Craig McNeil, as well as other debaters, including David Wood and apostate prophet. So click below to grab your tickets right now, as some ticket types have already sold out. You don't want to miss out on this cultural moment that's starting Saturday, February 15th in Newark, New Jersey, with 2 full days of debates. So click below